Chapter 549. I'll give you one chance. The group of 4 alighted from the aerial spirit beast as soon as it landed on the solid ground. Bits of snow were falling from the sky. It was cold, but given that even the weakest of them, Zhao Ya, was at the half-transcension realm, the frigid weather didn't affect them much. After tidying himself up, Zhongxian looked at the glacier plain court before him. From a distance, he could already sense majesty and grandness from the court. But even so, the true extent of its scale didn't hit him until he was right before it. From the front, it extended for more than 1,000 meters, and it was around 50 to 60 meters high. It seemed as though it was a residence made for giants. The entrance gate was nearly a dozen meters tall, and it looked extremely heavy. Walking up, Pavilion Master Kang took in a deep breath and announced, "Kang Gan of Myriad Kingdom City has come as per our agreement. I seek Court Chief Wu's audience." A moment later, the huge gate opened, and several figures came out. They were all ladies dressed in white robe. The one leading the group walked up and said, "Pavilion Master Kang, our court chief invites you in." The white robe of the ladies put against the snowing landscape created quite a beautiful yet desolate sight. "Thank you." Nodding his head, Pavilion Master Kang led the group in. Zhongxian observed the white-robed female disciples while walking into the court. They were young, probably only in their 20s, but their cultivation was astounding. They were all around transcendent mortal 3 Dan at the minimum. They could be considered as geniuses to possess such cultivation levels at their age. The lady who had welcomed Pavilion Master Kang in previously had even reached transcendent mortal 3 Dan pinnacle. Walking into the glacier plain court, the first thing Zhongxian noticed was that the spiritual energy in the air seemed to have gotten even more lively. It seemed as though it would dive through his pores at any moment, making it much easier to cultivate. What lively spiritual energy! Zhongxian's eyes lit up. Even though the concentration of spiritual energy was no different from how it was outside, the spiritual energy was exceptionally lively. Even if one didn't intentionally attempt to guide the spiritual energy into their body, it would still seep in on their own accord to temper one's body and nourish one's cultivation, thus enhancing one's rate of cultivation. It was just like a high-pressured hose against a lake of stagnant water. It was clear which one would flow faster through a stream. The high cultivation of these young ladies proved testimony to that fact. This place was definitely a blessed land for cultivating. The further they walked in, the greater the liveliness of spiritual energy. It created a compelling urge that motivated one to sit down on the spot to cultivate. And this wasn't even the Yin-Yang Lake yet. It was no wonder why Pavilion Master Kang would go through so much effort to bring them here. It was indeed worth the effort. Other than white-robed ladies, there were red-robed ladies in the court as well. In contrast to the cold disposition of the former, the latter felt fiery as though compressed flames were threatening to burst out at any moment. Sensing Zhongxian's doubts, Pavilion Master Kang said, "The cultivation technique of the glacier plain court is the purest attribute cultivation technique, and they can be divided into yin and yang." Zhongxian nodded. Actually, even without the other's explanation, he could tell as much via the eye of insight. Harnessing the attribute of flame, the yang cultivation technique granted a searing edge to the zhenqi of the red-robed ladies, thus building a fiery disposition. On the other hand, the white-robed ladies who guided them were austere, and it seemed as though they rejected all that tried to approach them. A difference in cultivation technique would also cause a difference in one's disposition. Pavilion Master Kang continued, "The Yin-Yang Lake is divided into the Yang Lake, Yin Lake, and the Amalgamation Lake. One would have to enter the segment compatible with one's cultivation technique to benefit from the effects of Yin-Yang Lake." Zhongxian was surprised upon hearing those words. When he first heard of Yin-Yang Lake, he thought that it was just the name of a blessed land. But from the looks of it now, it wasn't as simple as he thought. After walking around for a bit longer, the lady guiding them around stopped. "The court chief is inside, please proceed in." Pavilion Master Kang and group walked in. It was an extremely vast hall. Unlike the extravagance that Zhongxian expected, the ornaments that filled the room were relatively simple. A lady was seated at the topmost center seat, and she was looking down at the group with an impassive expression. Zhongxian assessed the lady before him. She seemed to be in her 30s, but perhaps due to her beautiful features, time didn't seem to leave much of a mark on her face. Her black hair complemented perfectly with her white clothes, and she looked as though she had come out from a painting. But of course, while she was pretty, she was still unable to compare up to Zhao Ya. Thus, after taking a brief look, Zhongxian began assessing her cultivation. Her cultivation seemed to be deeply concealed, making it hard to detect. Even so, Zhongxian still felt danger from her. The other party's soul seemed to exert an immense pressure on his soul, as though the true nature of his soul would be easily seen through. Is this consonant spirit realm? Zhongxian thought. Zhongxian felt even greater pressure from her than from Alliance head Zhao, Shuiyao, and Pavilion Master Kang. Given that the latter three were all transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle experts, most likely, this court chief had already surpassed that level. At transcendent mortal 5-dan consonant spirit realm, one's soul would be significantly augmented, granting one greater control over the environment. Such an expert could wield immense might with the slightest of movements, and their fighting prowess was extraordinary. Eye of Insight. Activating the Eye of Insight, Zhongxian took a look at the other party and frowned. In the midst of his observation, Pavilion Master Kang stepped forward and clasped his fist. Court Chief Wu, pleased to meet you once again. Knowing that the other party's cultivation was above his, even Pavilion Master Kang, as a 4-star pinnacle master teacher, didn't dare to pull his weight. Thus, his attitude was extremely respectful. Same here. Are these the ones taking on the Yin-Yang Lake trial? Court Chief Wu asked as her gaze fell on the trio standing behind Pavilion Master Kang. Then, a frown appeared on her forehead. Why are there 3 of them? It's like these 3 are the most outstanding youths of my generation. I truly find myself unable to choose among them, so I decided to bring them all along. I hope that Court Chief can make an exception and allow them all to challenge the trial for an opportunity to enter the Yin-Yang Lake, Pavilion Master Kang hurriedly explained. Pavilion Master, you should know the rules of our Yin-Yang Lake. 2 slots means 2 slots, no exceptions can be made. Court Chief Wu shook her hands grandly. She felt like a block of ice, as though nothing in the world could change her will. This. All right then. Seeing the other party's determined expression, Pavilion Master Kang knew that it would be futile even if he were to push on. Thus, with a bitter smile, he shook his head and said, "May I know in what form the trial will be presented? I would like to allow my juniors to prepare themselves. The trial is simple, they just have to walk out from my room of fire and ice." Court Chief Wu said nonchalantly. Room of fire and ice. Pavilion Master Kang frowned in confusion. The Room of Fire and Ice is a tool our Glacier Plane Court uses to test one's capability. Similar to the Heart Inquisition crystal, by dripping a drop of fresh blood on it, one's mind will be put under the agony of blazing flames and frigid ice. If one can endure the torture and find the exit within 2 hours, one would be deemed to have passed the test. Otherwise, it would be deemed as a failure, and they will be unqualified to enter the Yin-Yang Lake, Court Chief Wu explained. Everyone nodded their head in understanding. In truth, they didn't expect for the trial to be a test on their mental fortitude. Such a test was more related to one's will rather than one's cultivation. After explaining, Court Chief Wu said, "You should hurry up and select the 2 who are taking the trial. There's no need for that. Ruohuan, you'll sit out of this one," Pavilion Master Kang instructed. Yes. Ruohuan Gong's face couldn't be any more bitter. But even though he felt indignant, this was a decision made by his teacher. Thus, he could only nod his head in agreement. The fundamental principle of a master teacher was to respect one's teacher. The commands of a teacher mustn't be disobeyed. Just as he was depressed at having lost such a good opportunity, Zhongshi's voice sounded, "Wait a moment." After which, he lifted his head to look at the lady in the center and said, "Court Chief Wu, may I know under what conditions can the 3 of us take on the trial?" Hearing the interjection, Court Chief Wu frowned in displeasure. Pavilion Master Kang, is this the junior that you brought here? How can a junior interrupt a conversation between seniors? Zhongshe. Not expecting the latter to suddenly speak up, Pavilion Master Kang hurriedly turned to the latter anxiously. Even though it was a pity that not everyone would gain the opportunity to take on the trial, it was better than nothing. If they were to enrage the other party, it was likely that the opportunity could be taken away from them. While Pavilion Master Kang held immense prestige in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, there was only one glacier plane court throughout the entire Huanyu Empire. Before the head of the only glacier plane court, not to mention a transcendent mortal 5-dan expert, his position had indeed become insignificant. Disregarding Pavilion Master Kang's anxious gaze, Zhongxian continued speaking nonchalantly. Age isn't what that determines one's position. Just because one is young, that doesn't mean he must be a junior. Similarly, an old person could have simply wasted his time away. How about this, Court Chief Wu? I'll grant you an opportunity. I'll provide you guidance personally in exchange of an additional slot for the trial. What do you think of it? What? Pavilion Master Kang and Ruohuan Gongzi staggered, they nearly spurted blood. It was clearly conveyed to them during the journey that they shouldn't utter anything unnecessary. Court Chief Wu wasn't an easy person to get along with. Can't you see that even the Pavilion Master himself is treading very carefully around the other party? To grant the other party an opportunity of your guidance. The heck? Let's put aside the fact that you've only just received your 4-star Master Teacher emblem. Even Pavilion Master Kang, a 4-star Pinnacle Master Teacher, is unqualified for such a matter. After all, the other party was a true blue transcendent mortal 5-dan expert. Regardless of whether it was her knowledge or experience, she was far superior to the rest of them here. For a fellow like you who have just barely reached transcendent mortal 2-dan to speak like that. Aren't you afraid of being pummeled to death? Guide me. As expected, after hearing those words, Court Chief Wu's eyebrows shot up and a powerful aura emanated from her, leaving all existences trembling before her presence. You wish to guide me? And you call that giving me an opportunity? Ignoring the other party's fiery aura, Zhongxian nodded his head. Indeed. This opportunity will only come once, so I advise you to grasp it firmly. Seeing how Zhongshe was getting more and more overboard, Ruohuan Gongzi's lips twitched. He hurriedly sent a telepathic message to Zhao Ya in hopes that she could stop her teacher. Zhao Ya, you should mediate the situation. He knew that Zhongshe valued this student of his a lot, and perhaps her words might be effective against him. All right. Nodding her head, Zhao Ya stepped forward. Court Chief Wu, my teacher is right. This is a good opportunity that you shouldn't miss. Otherwise, you'll surely regret for life. The heck? Ruohuan Gongzi nearly spurted a mouthful of blood. Big sis, by mediation, I meant that you should stop your teacher. Why in the world are you persuading Court Chief Wu instead? Not to mention, to say that the other party would regret for life. Isn't your confidence in your teacher way off the charts? For a transcendent mortal 2-dan master teacher to speak to a transcendent mortal 5-dan expert in such a manner, not to mention that complete lack of embarrassment when speaking those words. How in the world are you teacher and disciple be so confident? You. Court Chief Wu was also about to explode from hearing those words. Pavilion Master Kang, take your people and leave. Our glacier plane court doesn't welcome such arrogant people. Chapter 550, Neither male nor female. Court Chief Wu, Zhongshe isn't as reckless as you think he is. Not expecting Zhongshe to drive the usually composed Court Chief Wu to the point that she was chasing them away, Pavilion Master Kang's lips twitched violently, and he was about to go insane. Only he himself knew how far he had worked for these 2 slots. Yet, this fellow actually offended the other party as soon as he arrived. Ignoring Pavilion Master Kang's explanation, Court Chief Wu bellowed loudly, "Send our guests off." Voila! The few white-robed ladies who had brought them in walked forward and with menacing gazes, they said, "This way please." Court Chief Wu. Pavilion Master Kang was still trying to salvage the situation when Zhongxian interrupted him. All right, Pavilion Master Kang. Why should you waste your time with this fellow who God knows what her gender is? Let's just leave. Jia. Ruohuan Gongzi's legs suddenly caved in, and he nearly collapsed to the ground. Pavilion Master Kang also stood petrified on the spot. He had known this Court Chief Wu for many years. Beautiful and elegant, the latter could leave many ladies embarrassed over their form. To actually say that God knows what her gender is to such a person. Even if the other party disagreed to giving them another slot, 2 was actually fine as well. And even if the other party chased them away, at the very least, they could still leave peacefully. Yet, Zhongshe just had to insult the other party. It would be a miracle if the other party didn't kill you on the spot. Pavilion Master Kang quickly drove his zhenqi and stepped in front of Zhongxian. If Court Chief Wu were to make a move, even if it meant that he would sustain grievous wounds, he would ensure that the others could leave safely. What did you say? Not beyond expectations, Court Chief Wu's face turned livid as though steel, and rage seethed in her eyes. If looks could kill, Zhongxian would have been torn apart countless times. Stop feigning ignorance, shouldn't you understand what I am saying the clearest? Do you really need me to point it out? Even before this impending crisis, Zhongxian didn't panic at all. If I'm not mistaken, the hair on certain parts of your body grow at a very rapid pace. Pu. That comment dealt the final blow to Ruo Huangongzi. He nearly failed to catch his breath and died on the spot. The heck? Big brother, are you doing this intentionally? It was already shameless of you to scold the other party for being neither a man nor a woman. And now, you are even talking about the other party's hair. No matter how long the other party's hair is, it is hidden beneath her clothes. How the heck does that concern you? To speak such words in public, are you a hoodlum? Besides, even if her hair grows at a rapid pace, how in the world can you tell? What in the world are you using a master teacher's discernment ability for? Pavilion Master Kang was currently undergoing the same shock as his student was going through. Thunder seemed to rumble ceaselessly in his head, and the zhenqi that he had just gathered nearly dissipated due to his shock. He was the head of a master teacher pavilion, one of the most esteemed experts in the Myriad Kingdom city. Yet now, it seemed as though he had accompanied this hoodlum here to provoke the head of the Glacier Field Court. Ah, his dignity and his honor. His face warped in conflict, and at this moment, even the thought of suicide flashed across his mind. But regardless, he was the one who brought Zhongshe here. No matter how absurd the other party's behavior was, he was still a member of the Master Teacher Pavilion. He couldn't simply give up on the other party just like that. Gritting his teeth, Pavilion Master Kang was just preparing himself for the storm-like wrath of a transcendent mortal 5-dan expert when the raging Court Chief Wu's face suddenly paled. How did you know? Ah! Pavilion Master Kang's zhenqi really dissipated this time, and his entire body slackened weakly. Zhongshe was actually spot on. He said that Court Chief Wu was neither male nor female, and that her hair was growing rapidly on certain places. But not only did the other party didn't lash out, she even admitted to it. Are my ears playing tricks on me, or has Court Chief Wu gone mad? Simple. Despite the overwhelming yin nature of your body, many of your acupoints are exuding yang energy. Your gestures are that of a demure maiden, but your words are full of might. As though knowing the other party would admit to it, there wasn't the slightest surprise in Zhongxian's expression. If I'm not mistaken, you must be suffering from a conflict of yin and yang in your body, and you are unable to balance the both of them. That is precisely the reason why you grew a mustache and beard, and your pores are getting thicker. This. Court Chief Wu's body jolted. The other party's words were spot on. She was indeed suffering from a clash of yin and yang in her body. Over the past 2 years, she'd even begun growing a beard. If not for her shaving it diligently every day to retain your honor, she would have long died from embarrassment from the mocking of others. She thought that as long as she mediated the yin and yang energy within her carefully, she would be able to solve the problem. But who could have known that as time passed, her condition only continued to worsen. In fact, her pores were even starting to become thicker. This matter involved a lady's pride. Embarrassed, she didn't dare to find anyone to take a look at it. Never in the world did she expect this fellow to see through her affliction in a single glance. How in the world did he manage to see through it? By hair growing rapidly on certain parts of the body. You mean the beard? Seeing the trembling shocked Court Chief Wu, Pavilion Master Kang and Ruo Huangongzi widened their mouths in astonishment. At the same time, they wiped the sweat off their reddened faces. When they heard about hair growing in certain parts of the body, their minds immediately thought of indecent stuff. After all, how could they have possibly imagined that a female would grow a beard? After being injured by searing sword qi, You thought that you are unable to bring out the fullest extent of the might of the great ancient incursion art. Thus, you decided to switch to a yin nature cultivation technique instead. In the end, you failed to control the energies in your body properly and ended up in such a state. Even though you are still able to suppress it with brute force at the moment, that will be unfeasible in the long run. Within 3 years, the situation will spiral beyond your control, Zhongxian said. If the other party didn't execute a battle technique, he would be unable to utilize the library of Heaven's path and determine the exact specifics of the other party's condition. Even so, through the sharp discernment ability of the Eye of Insight, he was able to see that this court chief Wu shaved her beard on a daily basis. As such, he was able to deduce that the other party was suffering from a conflict of yin and yang. Factoring in the previous problem that Pavilion Master Kang spoke of, it wasn't too difficult for him to deduce the cause of the affliction. The great ancient incursion art centered around the concept of sharpness and burst power. It only allowed its user to launch 3 extremely powerful strikes before drying out. This was the reason why Zhongxian thought the patient was a male back then when he looked at the case study. Therefore, he was rather surprised upon hearing Pavilion Master Kang calling the patient a she then. Upon seeing Court Chief Wu at this moment, it wasn't too hard for him to tie things together. She must have switched from the great ancient incursion art to a yin attribute technique, thus resulting in a clash of energy that she was unable to mediate between. The best way to solve such a matter was to destroy one's foundation and start afresh. But as the strongest expert and the chief of the Glacier Plain Court, how could she bear to do so? Thus, she tried to suppress the energy in hopes that the problem would die down soon. However, as time passed, the situation only worsened, and she found herself slowly losing control. As for why Court Chief Wu, despite being a female, would choose to cultivate a yang attribute technique that was more suited for males, Zhongxian wasn't too sure either. However, he felt that it might be related to the yin-yang lake. After all, the red-robed ladies that he had seen previously were all cultivating yang attribute cultivation techniques as well. After hearing those words, while Pavilion Master Kang and Ruohuan Gongzi felt that it was a little far-fetched, Court Chief Wu's face turned ghastly white. The other party's analysis was spot on. Back then, even though she was treated by Pavilion Master Kang, there were some side effects to the treatment. For one, she found herself unable to fully unleash the might of the great ancient incursion art anymore. Thus, she changed to a yin nature cultivation technique instead in hopes of using it to achieve a breakthrough, as well as to neutralize the lingering searing sword qi in her body. And due to that, she improved swiftly. It didn't take her long to neutralize the sword qi and recover fully from her wounds. But that also left behind a trauma in her, thus resulting in the current situation. May I know if there is any treatment method for it? Since the other party could see through it, perhaps he would be able to solve it. Thus, Court Chief Wu couldn't help but look at the other party expectantly. There's indeed some ways to treat your affliction. The most direct method is to dissipate your cultivation and start anew, Zhongxian said. Dissipate my cultivation. That won't work. My lifespan is already beyond 100 now. If I were to dissipate my cultivation, I'd surely die from old age instantly, Court Chief Wu hurriedly said. It was not that she had never thought of this method before. But given her current age, without her cultivation sustaining her bodily functions, she would immediately age swiftly and die in less than 3 days. What was the use of treating her affliction if she were to die because of it? If so, she might as well just persevere on with the current situation. Zhongxian nodded his head. The other party's words were indeed true. The extended lifespan of a transcendent mortal came from the augmentation of their cultivation. If their cultivation were to disappear, they would immediately revert back to ordinary lifespan of a human. Is there any other solution? Court Chief Wu asked. That. How about this, you execute a punching routine for me so that I can analyze your condition. However, I can't guarantee you that I'll be able to find a solution. Zhongxian shook his hands. While he had a rough idea of what the other party's affliction was, without the Library of Heaven's path accurately pointing out the specific causes resulting in the other party's current condition, he wasn't too sure how the problem could be treated. Naturally, he wouldn't be able to guarantee whether he could treat the other party's affliction either. After hesitating for a moment, Court Chief Wu nodded her head. All right. Regardless of whether Zhongshe is able to treat my affliction or not, I promise to grant you a third slot for the trial. She was about to go insane being tortured by her current condition as she saw more and more characteristics of a male appearing on her every day. If the person before her could really treat her affliction, she would be willing to pay anything without hesitation, let alone a single slot for the trial. UN. Zhongxian nodded his head. In the end, the reason why he went through so much trouble was to obtain that additional slot. Since the other party had given him her word, naturally, he had to give his all in his treatment as well. Just like that, he succeeded. It was just a moment ago that Court Chief Wu seemed as though she would tear all of them apart. Yet, at this very instant, not only did her rage fade completely, she even promised to give them the slot. Pavilion Master Kang was dumbfounded. Wasn't he way too formidable? Even though he was seeing this for himself, he still found the situation hard to believe. On the other hand, Ruo Huangongzi was about to be driven insane from shock. All along, he felt that luck had been a huge factor in why he lost to the other party in the selection round. He thought that as long as he cultivated hard, it wouldn't be impossible for him to turn the situation around 2 months later, thus reclaiming the title of the #1 genius of Myriad Kingdom Alliance. It was only after this incident that he realized that the other party's eye of discernment and meticulousness toward details weren't things that he could compete with. In fact, even his own teacher seemed to be unable to match up to Zhongshe. This fellow. Was he really a person who had just qualified as a 4-star master teacher? Unaware of the doubts in Ruo Huangongzi's mind, Zhongxian turned to Court Chief Wu and waved his hands. Let's begin then. All right. Nodding her head, Court Chief Wu whipped out her arm and executed a powerful punch. Zhongxian's eyes were fixated on the other party's movements, but in truth, his consciousness was in the library of Heaven's Path. He was busy flipping through the book to look through the details of the other party's affliction. Who? Soon, Court Chief Wu finished her display and turned her gaze to Zhongxian. Are there other ways to treat my affliction? As she spoke those words, her breathing couldn't help but hasten. If even the young man before her was unable to treat her affliction, she really couldn't imagine what kind of terrors awaited her in the future and how she could endure them. There's indeed a solution to your problem. Exhaling deeply, Zhongxian looked at Court Chief Wu with a bizarre expression and asked, "What do you think of our Pavilion Master Kang?" Ah! Court Chief Wu was stunned. Chapter 551 Zhongxian's Shady Dealing 2-in-1. I asked you for a solution to my problem, why are you suddenly asking me about Pavilion Master Kang? But even though Court Chief Wu was perplexed, knowing that this was probably related to the treatment, she replied earnestly, I've known Pavilion Master Kang for many years, so I guess we can be considered to be familiar with one another. Standing by the side, Kang Gan was already bewildered. He had no idea what Zhongshe was thinking of. Since you are familiar with him, that should make things simple. With a bright smile on his face, Zhongxian continued, our Pavilion Master is a righteous and honest person. On top of that, he's a master teacher, so he has a bright future ahead of him. More importantly, his looks are above average as well. The more Zhongxian spoke, the more confused Court Chief Wu became. Bewildered, she asked, Pavilion Master Kang is indeed a fine man. For the welfare of the Master Teacher Pavilion, he was willing to pay a heavy price just to obtain the slots to enter the Yin-Yang Lake for his juniors. Just that, what does this have to do with treating my conflict of yin and yang? This had everything to do with it. Zhongxian's eyes rotated between the two parties involved and said, why don't the both of you get married? Pu. Pavilion Master Kang choked on his own saliva and nearly fainted over. Ruo Huangongzi also widened his eyes in shock. Aren't you trying to treat Court Chief Wu? Why does it seem like you're matchmaking instead? To dare to propose a matrimony between Pavilion Master Kang and Court Chief Wu. You sure are brave. Marry? Court Chief Wu's body shook, and her vision went dark. She had only asked this fellow to treat her. How in the world did it turn into a talk about marriage instead? What the heck does the other party mean by trying to get me to marry Pavilion Master Kang? That's right. There is no problem with you cultivating a forceful yang cultivation technique. The main issue lies in you changing your cultivation technique halfway through, resulting in a collision between yin and yang. The best way to completely cure you of your affliction is to find a spouse whose cultivation is around your level and possesses outstanding control over Zhenqi to mediate the yin and yang within your body. Zhong Xian continued, as a transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle expert, Pavilion Master Kang is just a step away from reaching consonant spirit realm. On top of that, he is a 4-star pinnacle master teacher, and his knowledge and control over Zhenqi is superior even when compared to yours. Thus, he is the most ideal candidate in mind. If the two of you get together, in just 3 to 6 months, you will be able to completely neutralize the yin and yang energy in your body and make a complete recovery. This. Court Chief Wu was stunned. She didn't expect for her situation to be able to be solved in such a manner. Ever since she started cultivating, she had been guarding her purity closely. She never tried to get close to any men, and she didn't allow any men to get close to her either. For her to marry someone so abruptly, even if it was to treat her physical affliction, she still found it hard to accept. While she was still hesitating, Pavilion Master Kang hurriedly said, "Are there no other solutions? This won't work." Even though he was still single, how could he accept marrying a bearded beauty? Just the thought of the other party's beard growing even more diligently than his made his goosebumps stand on ends. Of course there are other solutions, but this is the simplest one, Zhong Xian said. Let's use the other solutions then. As long as it's within my means, I'll definitely give my all. Pavilion Master Kang hurriedly said. However, before he could finish his words, a vicious glare fell on him and a cold voice sounded. Kang Gan, what do you mean? For you to turn down a marriage with me so hurriedly, are you hinting that I am unworthy of you? Even if it was to treat her affliction, she didn't want to marry this old man either. But, even if the marriage didn't go through, she should be the one rejecting the other party. For this old man to quickly reject her as though he had stepped on something disgusting, what the heck did he mean by that? Am I that repulsive? In terms of cultivation, as a transcendent mortal 5-dan, I am way superior to you. In terms of standing, as the only head of Glacier Plain court throughout the entire Huanyu Empire, there are countless pavilion masters wanting to fawn over me. In terms of appearance, even though there are others that are more beautiful than me, I am at least a 1 in 10,000 beauty. Even though I'm no longer in my youth, my beauty still lingers on. I haven't even agreed to the marriage yet. What rights do you have to be rejecting me so anxiously? Court Chief Wu, you must be jesting. How could I dare to harbor such thoughts? I just think that. Not expecting the other party to fault him over this matter, Pavilion Master Kang's lips twitched. I am unworthy of you. I am the one who is unworthy of you. It's good that you have some self-awareness. Hearing those words, Court Chief Wu's expression finally softened. Turning to the young man before her once more, she said, "What other ways are there? As long as it's within my means, I'll definitely give my all." Pavilion Master Kang was rendered speechless. Wasn't that exactly what I said? If not for you interrupting the conversation, we could have progressed much faster than that. There's another way to do so. That's to find an expert with pure yin body whose cultivation is on par with you. You can make use of her blood to neutralize the remaining yang energy within your body. You don't need too much of it, just 1 drop is sufficient, Zhong Xian said. Pure yin body? Court Chief Wu smiled bitterly. Unique constitutions were like a grain of sand amidst a gigantic ocean. If it was that easy to possess a unique constitution, everyone would have been an expert by now. The reason why their origin Flame Glacier Plain had been training their members in yang attribute and yin attribute cultivation techniques, even going to the extent of creating the yin-yang lake, was just so to groom a cultivator with the pure yang body or pure yin body. But after so many years, there hadn't been a single success yet. Besides, even if they were successful, that person would surely have been taken away by the headquarters already. To find such a person to cure her affliction was nigh impossible. Since it won't work, why don't Pavilion Master Kang and I get married? Court Chief Wu proposed hesitantly with an awful complexion. Hearing the bearded lady's intention to marry her, Pavilion Master Kang nearly fainted on the spot. He hurriedly shouted, "No need for that. Isn't there a person with pure yin body here? There is. Court Chief Wu was taken aback. Where? There might not even be the birth of a person with this unique constitution over the span of a millennia, so how could such an expert be found so easily? Zhongsha's student, Zhao Ya, is a person possessing the pure yin body. On top of that, she has even awakened it by 20% already. Afraid that the other party would lay her thoughts on him, Pavilion Master Kang hurriedly said, "You possess the pure yin body?" Narrowing her eyes, Court Chief Wu hurriedly assessed the girl before her. Yes, she possesses the pure yin body. There's no mistake about it. After saying so, Pavilion Master Kang hurriedly turned to Zhongxian and asked, "Since your student possesses the pure yin body and a single droplet of her blood can solve the court chief's affliction, why would you propose for the both of us to get married?" This Zhongsha was truly. Since the second method was that simple, why would he propose for the both of them to get married? Zhao Ya is my student. I have the responsibility to protect her from any harm. Naturally, I've no choice but to sacrifice you. Besides, I'm doing you a huge favor by helping you find a wife. TSK, for my goodwill to go unreciprocated. Zhongxian replied. Pavilion Master Kang staggered. To protect your student, you actually decided to sacrifice me. And you still dare to say that you are doing me a favor? Goodwill your head. Why don't you try marrying a bearded lady yourself? While the duo was arguing, Court Chief Wu was slowly walking to Zhao Ya with a body trembling in disbelief. You really possess the pure yin body? Yes. Zhao Ya's eyebrows shot up. Driving the zhenqi in her body, the characteristics of her constitution immediately appeared. A surge of cold air blew into the hall, gushing toward the skies. As her cultivation reached half-transcension, the powers of her unique constitution were gradually drawn out. With her current strength, there was no one of equal cultivation realm as her that could defeat her, not even master teachers. Most probably, only a monster like Zhongxian could match her on equal grounds. Indeed. She possesses the pure yin body. There's hope for our origin flame glacier plane. Feeling the powerful aura exuded from Zhao Ya, Court Chief Wu's eyes reddened. She rushed forward to grab Zhao Ya's arm and asked, "What's your name?" Zhao Ya. Seeing the normal Court Chief Wu suddenly behaving so frenziedly, Zhao Ya frowned and pushed her hand aside. Zhao Ya Xiajie, do you want to go to the headquarters with me? As long as you agree to it, you'll be granted the best cultivation resource immediately. You'll be able to awaken your pure yin body completely in the shortest time possible, thus becoming the strongest expert across the entire continent swiftly. Court Chief Wu said in agitation. There's no need for it. I wish to follow behind my teacher, Zhao Ya replied nonchalantly. It was due to Zhongsha's guidance that she had been able to come so far. The other party's position in her heart was already comparable to that of her own father, and he was the person she respected the most in the world. It was impossible for her to leave him on her own accord. Teacher. Who is your teacher? Due to her agitation, Court Chief Wu was a little muddle-headed at the moment. It is Zhongxian, Zhongsha, Zhao Ya said proudly. Zhongsha. Only then did Court Chief Wu finally come to a realization. She hurriedly turned to Zhongxian and asked, Zhongsha, can you lend your student to our origin flame glacier plane? We truly require a pure yin body expert. Lend. Zhongxian shook his head. My students are thinking humans. They can decide on their own. If they wish to follow you, I'll support them with all my heart. If they are unwilling to do so, no one will be able to force them into a decision. Even though Zhongxian's voice was calm, it carried immense confidence. As the owner of the Library of Heaven's Path, he was destined to walk a path different from the others. Even though he might be weak at the moment, he had the confidence to grow stronger in the shortest time possible. As long as Zhao Ya was unwilling to accept the other party's request, Zhongxian would not allow anyone to force her into it. Hearing the other party's confident words, Court Chief Wu recovered from her agitation and hurriedly shook her head. That is not what I mean. Zhongsha, please don't misunderstand my intentions. Why don't you tell us what is going on? Zhongxian asked. Through his eye of discernment, he could tell that Court Chief Wu's agitation was for real. She didn't even react so intensely when she heard that there was a cure for her affliction. Most probably, there was something much deeper to the matter. On top of that, she even said something along the lines of there was hope for the Origin Flame Glacier plane. I apologize, but it concerns the utmost secret of our Origin Flame Glacier field, so I'm unable to tell you anything further than this. With a conflicted expression, Court Chief Wu hesitated for a moment before saying, "How about this? I'll consult with the headquarters about this matter while you enter the Yinyang Lake. Regardless of the reply of the headquarters, I'll give you an explanation for this matter." UN. Zhongxian nodded his head. Every single occupation had their secrets and privacy. It was normal for the other party to have some things she was unwilling to reveal. Changing the subject, Court Chief Wu asked, "Just to confirm, the 3 slots should refer to the 3 of you, right?" "Yes. Me, Ruohuan Gongzi, and Zhao Ya." Zhongxian nodded. "Good. The Room of Ice and Fire is right ahead. Only after passing the trial can you enter the Yinyang Lake." Court Chief Wu explained, "The reason why we have the trial is due to the bizarre nature of the Yinyang Lake. The amalgamation of yin and yang can create huge stress on one's body, putting them in immense pain. If one couldn't even endure the Room of Ice and Fire, one might end up being seared to ash by the flow of yang energy or frozen into an ice block by the flow of yin energy in the Yinyang Lake." "I see." Zhongxian nodded. He was wondering why they still had to undergo the trial despite everything that had happened. This seemed to be the true reason behind it all. It was just like how one had to be administered suspect penicillin before the real injection. Otherwise, one might die from the inability to adapt in the Yinyang Lake. As such, the trial was, in truth, a preventive measure to assess one's ability beforehand. Walking up to the entrance of the Room of Ice and Fire, Zhongxian assessed the interior of the room. It was somewhat similar to the House of Trust he had entered during the Master-Teacher examination in Tianwu Kingdom. "Who wants to give it a try first?" Court Chief Wu asked with a smile. "Me." Hearing those words, Ruohuan Gongzi quickly rushed forward anxiously. After several rounds of competing with Zhongxian, he had finally understood a fact. If he were to allow the latter go first, putting aside how all of his glory would be stolen from him, he might even wreck the entire area. After all, his history with Elder Wu, Elder Yun, and Elder Bai spoke a lot. Regardless, one thing was for sure: Zhongxian shouldn't be allowed to go first. This was a safety precaution. Rather than dealing with the possible problems in his aftermath, he might as well be the first to clear the trial. At the very least, he could still retain a little bit of confidence. Seeing the other party volunteering so actively, Court Chief Wu nodded her head and instructed, "Drip of a droplet of blood on the crystal outside the door before entering." "Yes." Walking up to the crystal, Ruohuan Gongzi bit his finger, dripped a drop of blood on it, before walking into the room. As soon as he walked in, rumbling sounds reminiscent of thunder began echoing ceaselessly. It was hard to imagine what kind of terrors were occurring inside. Court Chief Wu seemed to have known this would happen, and she was standing quietly by the side with her hands behind her back. Jia. After an unknown period of time, a charred figure walked out of the room. His hair was standing at ends, and black smoke was rising from his body. Who else could this be other than Ruohuan Gongzi? At the current moment, Jun Ruohuan bore no resemblance to the dashing gentleman he usually was. Instead, he seemed like a beggar who had just climbed out from a rubbish dump. With a body completely charred, he was in an extremely miserable state. Even though his mental fortitude had been breached, given how he was able to clear the test within 2 hours, his foundations are still quite strong. "All right, you are qualified to enter the Yinyang Lake." Glancing at the bit of incense still burning outside the room, Court Chief Wu nodded her head. Even though Ruohuan Gongzi had stayed inside for nearly 2 entire hours, he was still able to leave within the allotted time. On top of that, he still retained his consciousness. This showed that he possessed outstanding endurance and perseverance. With these, he was qualified to enter the Yinyang Lake. Didn't Court Chief Wu say that the Room of Ice and Fire is a test of one's mental resilience? Why would? Zhongxian asked doubtfully. The Room of Ice and Fire is indeed a trial on one's mental resilience. However, if one's mental fortitude is breached, One's physical body will incur injuries as well. Even so, to be able to walk out under such conditions, that person must possess outstanding endurance. After explaining, Court Chief Wu turned to look at Zhongxian. Zhongshe, are you going in next, or is Zhao Huaiye going? Allow me. Zhao Huaiye stepped forward. With the same procedures from before, Zhao Huaiye entered the room. However, in just an hour later, she was already done. Seeing this sight, Ruo Huangongzi fell into depression, and internally, he was shouting monster. One must know that Zhao Huaiye's age and cultivation was way beneath his. Of course, this trial didn't mean that Zhao Huaiye's capability was above that of Ruo Huangongzi. Rather, the pure yin body granted Zhao Huaiye immunity to the cold and a form of defense against the heat. This trial might have been difficult for most cultivator, but for her, it wasn't anything much. As such, even though Zhao Huaiye's condition was slightly unkempt when she walked out, she was in a much better state than Ruo Huangongzi. It's my turn. Since the other two had cleared, Zhongxian followed the same procedures as before and walked into the room. Seeing Zhongxian walk into the room, Ruo Huangongzi asked, "Teacher, how long do you think Zhongshe will take? Since you took around 2 hours and Zhao Huaiye around an hour, I think that Zhongshe should be able to clear the challenge in less than 15 minutes. Pavilion Master Kang said. That fellow had created too many miracles. Since even his student was able to clear the trial in an hour, most probably, he wouldn't even take half of the time. 15 minutes. Ruo Huangongzi shook his head. I think he would only take a maximum of 5 minutes. Ruo Huangongzi had a very deep impression of the latter's monstrous capability. Every time he thought it was impossible for the other party to succeed, the other party would do so in a manner that exceeded their expectations. Taking this situation for example, in truth, he also shared his teacher's thoughts that the other party would be able to complete the challenge within 15 minutes. But for some reason, his subconscious made him feel that the result would be even more frightening than his estimates. 5 minutes. Hearing the conversation between the duo, Court Chief Wu shook her head. That was the Room of Ice and Fire, an extremely fearsome trial. Clearing it within 5 minutes. Surely you too must be dreaming. Court Chief Wu, you simply don't understand how fearsome Zhongshe is. In truth, I'm thinking that 5 minutes might be an underestimation. Ruo Huangongzi explained. Is he that incredible? Hearing this talented master teacher declaring the matter so confidently, Court Chief Wu's opinion wavered. That Zhongshe did indeed see through a problem that escaped Pavilion Master Kang's eyes, and honestly speaking, there was something bizarre about him. Perhaps, he really might be able to accomplish the unthinkable. Indeed. Let's wait and see then. Ruo Huangongzi said so with a confidence even greater than that when he challenged the trial. 5 minutes have passed. It didn't take long for 5 minutes to pass, but the room didn't seem to be opening any time soon. Perhaps 10 minutes. With an awkward expression, Ruo Huangongzi changed his words. But after 10 minutes had passed, the room still remained sealed. Could it be 15 minutes? Having 2 of his guesses fail, Ruo Huangongzi uttered doubtfully. But a pity it was, but after 15 minutes had passed, not a figure emerged from the shut doors. 30 minutes. 50 minutes. 80 minutes. Soon, 2 hours passed but the Room of Ice and Fire remained bizarrely quiet. The time has ended but the other party isn't out yet. Seems like he failed to clear the trial. Court Chief Wu shook her head in lamentation. She thought that the young man would create a miracle just as the others had said. But from the situation, it seemed like they were overestimating him. Not only did the latter fail to create a miracle, he didn't even pass the trial. He failed. Ruo Huangongzi muttered with a face warped as though it was suffering from constipation. Every time he doubted that fellow, the other party would immediately make a comeback and prove him wrong. This time, he announced his trust in the other party's ability to achieve an outstanding result. But in the end, he failed. Zhongshe, are you intentionally trying to oppose everything I've said? Clutching his chest, Ruo Huangongzi felt a stifling sensation in his chest. Pavilion Master Kang's body also shuddered. He was on the verge of crying. Zhongshe had fared so well in the Master-Teacher Hall, why would he suddenly fail here? What in the world happened inside? going back to 2 hours ago, when Zhongxian just entered the room. Beyond the room was a long passageway that seemingly stretched to the ends of the world. Hong Long. As soon as the door closed, Zhongxian immediately felt stifling heat assaulting him from all directions. It was as if he had accidentally walked into an incinerator. Driving the heavens path Shenqi, he turned his gaze backward and frowned. The door, which had just shut on its own accord, actually disappeared from view, as though it had never existed from the start. Do I have to walk through the entire passageway to leave? Zhongxian frowned. Could this room of ice and fire actually be a formidable formation? And the only way to leave it is to walk to the end of the passageway? Slightly doubtful, Zhongxian proceeded forward. Xiong. But right after taking a few steps, the heat seemed to intensify. A sea of flames appeared in the surroundings, and there was no way to avoid it if Zhongxian wanted to proceed any further. Forget it, I should continue heading forward. Even after walking around the area, Zhongxian was still unable to find the exit. Thus, he decided to proceed forward. The heavens path Shenqi was extraordinarily powerful. Despite the searing heat scorching his skin, it was unable to hurt him at all. Just as Zhongxian was standing right before the flames, ready to step over it, his eyes suddenly blurred, and in an instant, it was as if he had stepped into a field of ice. Piercing chill penetrated his bones and spread across his body via his meridians, causing him to shudder involuntarily. He was on the verge of being reduced to an ice block. As a transcendent mortal expert, under normal circumstances, even if he were to sleep in an ice vault, as long as he had Zhenqi to protect his body, he wouldn't feel cold in the least. But at the current moment, he was shivering involuntarily. This was an extremely eerie situation. Driving his Zhenqi to ward off the cold, Zhongxian thought, it's no wonder Ruo Huangongzi was in such a terrible state when he exited. He probably suffered greatly under the torture of the alternating flames and ice. While transcendent mortal experts had the ability to ward off the effects of one's environment, but still, an abrupt steep change in temperature would still be hard to tolerate. It was just like how one could tolerate having one's hand being plunged into a bowl of cold water, but if one were to put one's hand in a bowl of warm water before that, the huge contrast in the temperature would be difficult to bear. Just as Zhongxian was able to proceed ahead, a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Fire and ice. No, it can't be a formation. Even a 4-star pinnacle formation is incapable of such might. Even a 4-star pinnacle formation would be incapable of the abrupt steep change in temperature that occurred in this room of ice and fire. But if that was the case, how in the world was this trial created? Besides, I didn't sense the movement in spiritual energy before entering. If there's a formation here, I would have surely sensed it. As a 4-star formation master, if there was a formation here, even though he hadn't tried using the Eye of Insight, he would have noticed it. Given the alternating fire and ice despite the lack of formation, there must be something much deeper to the trial. At the very least, it wasn't as simple as simply walking through the corridor. Furthermore, Court Chief Wu had said previously that this was a test of one's mental fortitude, and that Ruo Huangongzi's mental fortitude had been breached. This left him even more perplexed. I should see what's going on. Eye of Insight. With such doubts in mind, Zhongxian activated the Eye of Insight. Who? A dazzling radiance glowed in the surroundings, and several lines of insight surfaced in his eyes. After taking a brief look, Zhongxian shook his head. It's indeed a test of one's mental fortitude. My soul and consciousness has been brought into an illusion. Through the Eye of Insight, Zhongxian finally made sense of the happenings. The fire and ice that appeared before him weren't real, it was just an illusion. It was just like the crystals in the house of trust through one's blood, it created illusions that made one feel as though one was braving through a land of flames and ice. Those who succumbed to it would be permanently trapped within it. No one could save them. The Eye of Insight had the ability to see through falsehood. Despite how realistic the illusion was, under Zhongxian's sharp eyes, it still revealed its true nature. In truth, the exit from before was still at the same place, and his physical body was standing motionlessly at the center of the room. The interchanging heat and chill that he was experiencing at the moment wouldn't hurt him at all. That was to say, The pain and torture he had just felt was an assault on his consciousness. To possess such means without the use of a formation, the glacier plane court is indeed impressive. After taking another look, he confirmed that this wasn't a formation. But still, to be able to generate effects similar to a formation, the room of ice and fire wasn't as simple as it looked. It was just like the traps from Celestial Designer that he had seen in the Soul Oracle tomb back then. There were some non-formation master occupations that could create things that was in no way inferior to a formation. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for them to create their own heritage and pass it on for innumerable years without declining. There must be something here that is affecting my consciousness, causing me to perceive the interchanging heat and chill, even though it wasn't a formation, a lifelike illusion of this level that made one unable to discern one's soul from one's body definitely had to be powered by some powerful artifact or unique energy. Flaws. After understanding the situation, Zhongxian brought his consciousness back into his physical body, and went around touching the wall and the ground in the room of ice and fire. Not too long later, a book surfaced in his mind. I see. After reading through the content, Zhongxian smiled in understanding. Origin Flame Ice Plane, a bizarre phenomenon created by the overlapping of an origin fire and an ice plane. Going by the directions, it should be somewhere here. After measuring the room, Zhongxian walked to a certain location and tapped on several parts. Catcher. As the mechanical trap whirred into action, a huge hole appeared before Zhongxian's view. It was like a pitch-black abyss, and its depth was inestimable. I should go down to take a look. Facing this hole of unknown depth, others might be hesitant to proceed downward. However, possessing the red dust heaven ascending steps, Zhongxian had no such worries. Leaping downward into the abyss, Zhongxian's body fell swiftly. After a moment of free fall, Zhongxian activated the heaven ascending steps momentarily to slow his falling speed. Repeating the process several times, Zhongxian fell several thousand meters before stepping on solid ground once more. This underground cavern was extremely vast, and it was impossible to see its ends with just a single glance. A huge lake of a radius of 2 meters stood right before him. However, the lake had an extremely bizarre appearance. Half of it was flowing with lava whereas the other half had ice floating on it. He thought that the liveliness of the spiritual energy was already amazing in the hall above, but here, under the effects of the lake, the spiritual energy in the surrounding was several times that of the hall. Could this be the Yin-Yang Lake? Zhongxian thought. Chapter 552 Court Chief Wu making a move 2-in-1. It couldn't be that this was the Yin-Yang Lake, could it? If that wasn't the case, how could there be such a bizarre thing? But if that was the case, why was it that small? With just a radius of 2 meters, it would already be extremely cramped for one to enter it. After all, cultivating wasn't bathing. There was no cultivator who would be willing to let their guards down before another at such proximity to cultivate. If the Yin-Yang Lake was only this big, there was no reason why the glacier plane court would be so famous. Not to mention, it didn't match with how they had so many powerful disciples who were cultivating yin and yang cultivation techniques. I should take a look to see what's happening first. Walking forward, Zhongxian touched the surface of the lake lightly. Who? A book appeared in his hand. Origin Flame Glacier Plane Seed Water. Created by members of Origin Flame Glacier Plane by fusing the origin flames created by sealing the earth veins with unique material, Glacier Plane. It is an extremely rare material. Flaws. 1. It requires specialists to sustain it or else it'll be damaged very easily. There were many things written in the book. Soon, Zhongxian finished reading through the book. Turns out it isn't the Yin-Yang Lake. I thought that I'd found it. Zhongxian shook his head in disappointment. From the looks of it, the Yin-Yang Lake probably couldn't be found that easily. After all, it was the most important resource of the frigid plane court, so how could outsiders get access to it so easily? Not to mention, this underground chamber wasn't guarded at all. Based on the description from the Library of Heaven's Path, this, Origin Flame Glacier Plane Seed Water, was made by the members of the Glacier Plane Court fusing Origin Flame with Ice Plane. Initially, Zhongxian thought that Ice Plane referred to a land harnessing the power of ice. However, from the looks of it now, it seemed to be the name of a unique material, just like the origin flame. Pavilion Master Kang said that this land used to be a volcano before it became a land of ice. This should probably be the reason behind it. On the way here, Pavilion Master Kang had told them some details regarding the origin flame glacier field. This place used to be a searing sea of flames, a place uninhabitable even to the most resilient of weeds. The members of the Glacier Plain Court had changed the entire landscape into a land of snow. And if Zhongxian wasn't mistaken, it was most probably the doing of this small lake. The small lake had sealed the heat energy in the earth vein through the ice plain, resulting in the inability for heat to disperse in the region. Given the height of the mountain, it was just a matter of time before snow filled its entire terrain. It was just like if someone were to seal the heat of the burning lava through some means. As time passed, the temperature in the region would naturally fall. A thought suddenly emerged in Zhongxian's mind. Given how this item is capable of creating illusions, it must have a certain degree of effect on one's soul. What if my soul were to enter the lake? Even though this wasn't the yin-yang lake, there was one thing he could confirm: this lake had an effect on a cultivator's soul. Given the huge amount of energy harnessed within the pool, was it possible for his soul to be tempered by the energy within? Let me give it a try. Without any hesitation, Zhongxian immediately got down to business. In any case, this was part of the trial, so he wasn't really causing any trouble anyway. Sitting down on the ground, Zhongxian immediately drew his soul out, and his soul headed for the lake. Tzzzzzz. As soon as he entered, the surge of cold and heat immediately assaulted him, making his soul feel as though it had been plunged into a pot of burning oil and a river of freezing water simultaneously, placing him under great agony. But at the same time, his soul became stronger and more tangible. Not bad. Zhongxian nodded his head in satisfaction. The soul cultivation technique he was using was the Heaven's Path soul art. This made his soul exceptionally resilient, fearing neither yin or yang, thus allowing him to devour such overwhelming power. If it was any other soul oracle, their soul would have already dissipated from the heat in the water. In fact, this didn't just apply to soul oracles. Even bodies of consonant spirit realm expert would easily crumble before this simultaneous assault of heat and chill. Unlike the body, the soul is intangible. It wouldn't expand or contract when in contact with heat or chill, which would make a material very fragile. As such, Zhongxian was the only one who could make use of this precious resource to train his soul. No one else in the world would be able to do the same. Absorb. Understanding this fact, Zhongxian chuckled as his soul swallowed both the yin and yang energy in the water. Driving the Heaven's Path soul art to the maximum, Zhongxian's cultivation soared furiously. Catcher. The sound of a wall breaking down sounded. In just a few breaths, Zhongxian's soul cultivation had increased from Transcendent Mortal 2 Dan Pinnacle to Transcendent Mortal 3 Dan Primary Stage. But still, his cultivation showed no sign of stopping. On the contrary, he seemed to be absorbing the energy even faster. Transcendent Mortal 3 Dan Primary Stage, 3 Dan Intermediate Stage, 3 Dan Advanced Stage. Absorbing the yin and yang energy in the lake, Zhongxian's cultivation surged swiftly, a fold faster than the pace his Zhenqi cultivation usually progressed. This lake is the amalgamation of yin and yang, the collision of heat and chill. This is slined with the Heaven's Path soul art, thus hastening the rate of my cultivation. Zhongxian also understood the underlying principle behind this sight. The single origin conceives two, two conceives three, and three conceives all. The Heaven's Path cultivation techniques were created by putting countless formulas together, and it contained the utmost truth of the world. On the other hand, the lake before him represented the amalgamation of yin and yang in the world. It was due to the two factors in harmony with one another that his cultivation speed had been boosted significantly. But in truth, this increase in rate of cultivation wasn't too useful to him. After all, the main problem he had at hand was the lack of spirit stone. Even if he were to absorb spiritual energy from a spirit stone instead, he could easily achieve a breakthrough within 2 hours. Cutting it down by half into 1 hour didn't make much of a difference. So, it wasn't as effective as it sounded. But still, this was due to his cultivation technique being too overpowered. If anyone else could raise their rate of cultivation by twofold, they would probably be smiling in their sleep. Hong Long. After an unknown period of time, Zhongxian's soul trembled before he stopped his cultivation. Transcendent Mortal 4 Dan Pinnacle Reach. In less than 2 hours, his soul cultivation had increased by Transcendent Mortal 2 Dan Pinnacle to Transcendent Mortal 4 Dan Pinnacle. That was 2 whole realms. Upon making the breakthrough to Transcendent Mortal 4 Dan Clarifying Turbidity Realm, one's strength would raise from 800,000 ding to 1 million ding. Every single tier would mean an increase of strength by 200,000 ding. In other words, having reached 4 Dan Pinnacle, the strength that Zhongxian could derive from his soul added up to more than 1,600,000 ding. Factoring the 400,000 ding from his Zhenqi, that would mean Zhongxian's strength was currently standing at 2 million ding. Even Pavilion Master Kang wouldn't be a match for him. That was how powerful he was at the moment. Zhongxian never expected that his cultivation would increase by so much in less than 2 hours. But still, given that the soul oracles had already disappeared from the face of the world, it was best for Zhongxian to avoid using this power. Otherwise, all kinds of trouble might end up coming his way. This could prove to be extremely troublesome. Time to return. Now that Zhongxian's soul cultivation had reached its cap, he stopped his cultivation and his soul dived back into the body. Then, he stood up. Taking a look at the lake before him, the lake which showed a sight of the amalgamation of yin and yang before had disappeared altogether. At the current moment, it was no different from a normal lake. The yin and yang energy it harnessed before had been completely sapped dry by him. Zhongxian's soul was twofold larger than that of an ordinary transcendent mortal 4 Dan Pinnacle soul oracle. As a soul, his height was more than a single Zhong, 33 m, tall, and even 2 ordinary humans stacked together would be unable to match up to his size. 2 hours have already passed. I should leave the room now. Making a rough calculation, Zhongxian scratched his head in embarrassment. For the Room of Ice and Fire trial, Zhongxian had to leave the room within 2 hours to gain an opportunity to enter the Yin-Yang Lake. Given that the time had passed, it wasn't wrong to say that he had already failed the test. Pavilion Master Kang had worked so hard for him, going to the extent of even giving up on his student just so that he could get this opportunity. He wondered if the other party would faint in anger at his failure. Forget it, I'll just deal with it when it comes my way. In any case, Zhongxian was content with his gains here. Executing the red dust heaven ascending steps, Zhongxian flew back to where he came from. Possessing a Zhenqi cultivation of Transcendent Mortal 2 Dan advanced stage now, Zhongxian could now sustain his flight for at least more than a dozen seconds. Covering a distance of several thousand meters in this time period wasn't too hard of a task for him. In just 10 breaths, Zhongxian returned to the Room of Ice and Fire, and tapping on a few spots on the wall, the trapdoor closed. After ensuring that everything was in place, Zhongxian tidied his clothes before walking out. The moment he walked out, he saw Court Chief Wu, Pavilion Master Kang, and Ruohuan Gongzi standing anxiously in front of the door. From the looks of it, if he didn't appear soon, they would immediately barge into the room. "Zhongsha, are you okay?" Pavilion Master Kang asked worriedly. "I'm fine." Zhongxian nodded his head. "Then you." Ruohuan Gongzi was perplexed. Since the other party was fine, why didn't he come out earlier? In the end, he exceeded the timing and lost the opportunity to enter the Yin-Yang Lake. Court Chief Wu was also bewildered by the situation before her. Even though Ruohuan Gongzi and Zhao Ya had left the room within the allocated time, their states were rather unkempt when they walked out. On the other hand, not only was Zhongsha completely uninjured, his clothes were also completely intact as though they were new. He looked exactly the same as how he did when he first walked into the room. What was going on? This situation would normally only occur to geniuses who broke out of the illusion very quickly. Otherwise, under the effects of the illusion, one would suffer the assault of the power of yin and yang. Even if one's physical body was still fine, one's clothes would surely be tattered. "Oh. I felt that the yin and yang energy in the room wasn't too bad, so I started cultivating. But due to my moment of excitement, I actually forgot about the time." Zhongxian replied sheepishly. He couldn't reveal the matter about the soul oracle, so he replied with a half-truth instead. However, hearing those words, everyone staggered and nearly spurted blood. To cultivate, in a treacherous place like the Room of Ice and Fire? Anyone else who entered the area would be thinking of how they could hold on, and yet, this fellow actually thought it was a good place and lost track of the time while cultivating. Are you serious? Court Chief Wu frowned. The Room of Ice and Fire has a special mechanism that plunged one into illusions as soon as they entered. How did you cultivate under such a situation? I just happened to do so by sheer luck. Zhongxian shook his head. Feeling that it might be dangerous for him to continue speaking of this matter, he changed the topic. If that's the case, could I be considered to have passed the trial? The conditions for passing the trial states that one must pass the Room of Ice and Fire within 2 hours. Even though you missed the timing due to being immersed in your cultivation, rules are still rules. I can't make an exception and qualify you. Court Chief Wu shook her head. Even though she would have loved to see the young man before her succeed, the rules of the Glacier Plain Court were absolute. Regardless of the reason behind the young man's delay, he had failed the trial, and thus, he failed to earn the qualification to enter the Yin-Yang Lake. All right. Zhongxian shook his head. He had already known this would be the result when he looked at the timing. In any case, he didn't bear much hope for the Yin-Yang Lake for the first place. Besides, his soul cultivation had increased tremendously within the last 2 hours. Thus, he wasn't too disappointed. I'm willing to pass my slot on to my teacher. Zhao Huaiye offered anxiously. There's no need for that. Zhongxian was touched by Zhao Huaiye's thoughtfulness, but he shook his hands. The Yin-Yang Lake isn't of much use to me. Instead, you, as a cultivator possessing the pure yin body, should make full use of this chance to cultivate properly and metamorphose. But why? Are you disobeying my words now? Zhongxian frowned. No, just that. No, just that. Follow Court Chief Wu to the Yin-Yang Lake and cultivate properly. Try to awaken your unique constitution further during this period of time. Then, turning to Court Chief Wu, Zhongxian said, Court Chief, since I've failed to earn the qualification to enter the Yin-Yang Lake, please bring Zhao Huaiye and Ruohuan Gongzi over. I'll wait here with Pavilion Master Kang. UN. Seeing that Zhongsha didn't insist on tagging along, Court Chief Wu heaved a sigh of relief. She beckoned to the duo and said, the two of you, follow me. Yes. Seeing the displeasure on her teacher's face, Zhao Huaiye didn't dare to say much. Thus, she followed Court Chief Wu to the Yin-Yang Lake. Ruohuan Gongzi also followed closely behind. Before leaving, he turned around to look at Zhongsha with a look of awe. Despite losing such a precious opportunity, Zhongsha didn't cause a fuss or leverage on the other party's weakness for the other party to make an exception for him. As expected of the person whom even his teacher was impressed with. He was indeed a true master teacher. Zhongsha, this opportunity is so hard to come by. It's truly a pity. After the trio left, Pavilion Master Kang couldn't help but lamented. The nature of the Yin-Yang Lake made it extremely beneficial to the cultivation or origin energy realm and Yin-Yang realm cultivators. Otherwise, Pavilion Master Kang wouldn't have paid such a heavy price to bring the master teachers who passed the selection over. He thought that given Zhongsha's ability, the latter would surely be able to pass the trial easily. Who could have expected that he would actually fail? If Zhongsha could have entered the Yin-Yang Lake, the chances of him getting into the top 10 would be increased greatly. And now, with the cultivation of a transcendent mortal 2-dan primary stage cultivator, it would be nearly impossible for him to succeed. Even though the other party had his own motives as well, he was an upright person. Zhongxian wasn't willing to take the item from such a person without giving something equivalent in exchange. Just as Zhongxian was considering whether he should help the latter achieve a breakthrough to Consonant Spirit Realm when they return back to Myriad Kingdom City, a savage aura suddenly burst in the air, gushing into the heavens. It seemed as though the rage of an incredible expert had erupted. Feeling the suddenly outburst of power, Pavilion Master Kang and Zhongxian narrowed their eyes simultaneously. It's Court Chief Wu. Shit. This aura couldn't be any more familiar to them. It belonged to Court Chief Wu. What did this fellow intend to do by releasing such a powerful aura all of the sudden? Could it be that she means harm to Ruohuan Gongzi and Zhao Huaiye? She was a transcendent mortal 5-dan expert. If she were to really harbor such thoughts, even if the two of them were to work together, they would still be unable to withstand a single blow from her. There was too huge of a difference between their cultivation. Let's go over and take a look. With a darkened complexion, the duo rushed toward the place where the aura was released from. Chapter 553. The embarrassed Zhongxian stepping against the ground, Pavilion Master Kang charged forward as though a leopard. He shook his arms, and Zhenqi gushed frenziedly from his body, causing his speed to hasten once again. Spirit Intermediate Tier Battle Technique. Proud Eagle soaring the skies. This was a movement technique, and even if it wasn't the strongest one in the Myriad Kingdom City, it wasn't too far off from that. Executing it, Pavilion Master Kang's speed surged. Even an expert of Alliance Head Zhao's caliber would find it hard to keep up. Worried over the safety of his student, he even went to the extent of executing his ultimate move. Zhongshe, I'll be going on ahead to take a look. Where's he? The heck? Continuing on forward, Pavilion Master Kang turned his head to speak to Zhongshe. However, halfway through his words, his body stiffened, and he nearly fell to the ground. There was no one behind him at all. Instead, there was a figure, who was now only the size of a black dot, flitting swiftly in front of him, about to disappear at any moment. Who else could it be other than Zhongshe? He had used his strongest technique to move as fast as possible, and they thought that it would be impossible for the transcendent mortal 2-dan primary stage Zhongshe to catch up. Who could have known that before he could finish his words, the other party had already disappeared? The other party's speed was more than twofold faster than his. One had to know that he was a transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle expert, and on top of that, he had executed his strongest movement technique. And yet, he still nearly failed to even catch the other party's silhouette. Even though he had seen the sight for himself, he couldn't help but think that maybe his eyes were playing tricks on him. Was that still a transcendent mortal 2-dan cultivator? Even a 5-dan wouldn't possess such speed. Wait a moment, he isn't 2-dan primary stage but advanced stage? Pavilion Master Kang frowned. Rushing at full speed, Zhongshe's true cultivation was fully revealed. That wasn't the level of a transcendent mortal 2-dan primary stage but an advanced stage. How was that possible? He had seen the other party making a breakthrough to Origin Energy Realm right before him. Clearly it couldn't possibly be faked. And yet, in just half a month, the other party actually advanced 2 small realms to reach 2-dan advanced stage? No matter what, that was transcendent mortal 2-dan. To progress from primary stage to advanced stage in such a short period of time, not to mention, his cultivation had been reinforced and he seemed to be on the verge of making a breakthrough at any time. How did he do it? Wasn't that way too formidable? Besides, even if the other party was at Origin Energy Realm advanced stage, the other party was 2 huge cultivation realms weaker than a clarifying turbidity realm pinnacle expert like him. How could the other party be even faster than him given such? Not to mention, despite traveling at such speed, the other party's ability to make abrupt turns and leaps was absurd. At the very least, he knew that his spirit intermediate tier movement technique Proud Eagle soaring the skies was incapable of such a feat. Could it be that he had cultivated a spirit high tier movement technique or even a spirit pinnacle battle technique? Pavilion Master Kang was shocked by his own thoughts. Only the more powerful empires had the qualification to access such techniques. Even though he was the head of Myriad Kingdom Alliance Master Teacher Pavilion, he was still unqualified to learn or even to access them. Yet, Zhongshe, who had come from an unranked kingdom, actually had learned a battle technique of such level. His background must have been incredible. Su Fan and Ling Yuheng probably didn't tell me the complete truth. Zhongshe's background isn't simple at all. I'll have to ask them about it when I return, Pavilion Master Kang thought. Strength wasn't something that came from nowhere. Given how formidable Zhongshe was, his teacher and background must be anything but ordinary. Given how Su Shi and Ling Shi vouched for him with all their might, they must know something about him. Zhongshe. Wait for me. Suppressing his shock, Pavilion Master Kang raised his gaze once more, only to see that Zhongshe's figure had disappeared altogether. Thus, he quickly chased the other parties back. The glacier plain court wasn't too big. The place where the savage aura was released was only several hundred meters away from them. After making a few turns, Zhongxian arrived at a vast hall. Court Chief Wu, Ruohuan Gongzi, Zhao Ya, as well as several red-robed and white-robed female disciples were present in the room. Every single one of them was shaking in fear before the immense might Court Chief Wu was releasing. Before the group was an immense lake of around 20 meters wide. The lake was divided into two portions. It seemed like innumerable spirit stones had been embedded to it, creating a lake of pure spiritual energy. Could this be the Yin-Yang Lake? Even though Zhongxian had heard of the name of Yin-Yang Lake, this was his first time seeing it. Something's wrong. I've heard that the water of the Yin-Yang Lake is divided by their attribute. One end should be searing hot while the other end should be icy cold. Even though the lake in front is filled with spiritual energy, it doesn't seem to carry such attributes. Zhongxian frowned. The Yin-Yang Lake was famous across the world due to the yin and yang energy flowing within it. One end was bone-piercing cold while the other end was unendurable heat. The both of them met at the center, forming a mystical sight. Cultivating within the lake, one's zhenqi would be tempered by the power of hot and cold, yin and yang, thus making one's zhenqi even more dense. This would increase the speed of one's cultivation as well. Even though the lake before him was divided into two, all Zhongxian could sense from it was the flow of spiritual energy. There was no heat or coldness from it. Could this not be the Yin-Yang Lake? During that period of time, Pavilion Master Kang also arrived on the scene. Upon seeing that his student wasn't injured, he turned to Court Chief Wu and asked with a doubtful expression, "Court Chief Wu, what happened?" What in the world could have happened to send Court Chief Wu, a transcendent mortal 5 Dan, into such rage? Something has cropped up with the Yin-Yang Lake, Court Chief Wu said. Then, turning to the female disciples by the side, she bellowed, "Repeat what you said just now." "Yes." A female disciple stepped forward and said with a trembling voice, "Just as always, we came over here to clear up the seed water, but we realized that the power of yin and yang within the seed water had disappeared completely, just like the Yin-Yang Lake. The seed water is buried deep within the ground, and the power of yin and yang within it originates from the earth vein and ice plane. How could it possibly disappear all of the sudden?" Court Chief Wu couldn't believe this matter. Reporting to Court Chief, "This is a sample that we brought up from below. Look." The female disciple flicked her wrist and a pail appeared in her hands. It was a pail of clear water. Spiritual energy was dancing vigorously in it, but the water didn't carry the slightest chill or heat at all. The yin and yang attribute has really disappeared from the seed water. What's going on? Court Chief Wu's eyes reddened. The Yin-Yang Lake was the very basis of the Glacier Plain Court. If it was ruined, this branch would be as good as destroyed. While she was lashing out furiously, Zhongxian's mouth was twitching vigorously. Initially, he wasn't too sure what the seed water the other party spoke of referred to, but after seeing the water in the pail the female disciple brought over, he immediately shuddered. Wasn't that what he absorbed just a moment ago? Could it be related to the Yin-Yang Lake? Court Chief Wu, can you tell me what the seed water is? If there is any trouble, you could tell me about it. Perhaps we might find a solution to the problem by discussing it. Seeing the state of the court chief, Pavilion Master Kang suddenly got a bad premonition. This concerns the deepest secret of the Glacier Plain Court, so I didn't want to reveal it to you. However, given the current situation, it seems like I can't hide it any longer. Court Chief Wu hesitated for a moment before nodding her head. Even though the group before her were all outsiders, they were also master teachers. This was a huge crisis and she had no choice but to pin her hopes on them. This is the Yin-Yang Lake. Court Chief Wu gestured to the giant lake before them. Are you all curious why there is no collision between searing heat and frigid coldness in the lake, as is said in the rumors? Everyone nodded their heads. This was especially so for Pavilion Master Kang. He had noticed all of this as soon as he arrived, and this had left him perplexed. The spiritual energy from the Yin-Yang Lake originates from spirit stones. I believe you all should be able to tell as much. However, the yin and yang energy within originates from the seed water. The seed water is created by the glacier plain caught by fusing the searing heat of the earth vein and the frigid coldness of the ice plain through a unique method. It is usually buried deep in the mountain vein, and only when it is required will we take a pail of water from it and pour it in this lake. Court Chief Wu explained. Even though it was just a brief introduction, it concerned the deepest secret and most fundamental secret behind the existence of the glacier plain court. The supposed yin-yang lake wasn't naturally formed but man-made. Its very foundation was the seed water. Only by pouring a pail of seed water in the yin-yang lake would yin and yang energy be granted to the water, turning it into a blessed land for cultivators. It was just like a bottle of syrup and the cordial made of it. The most important part of it wasn't the cordial but the bottle of syrup, and at this moment, the yin and yang attribute of the seed water had actually disappeared altogether. Without the seed water, the yin-yang lake would be reduced to nothing more than a lake concentrated in spiritual energy. Even though it was still useful to one's cultivation, its effectiveness was significantly lower than before. This. Pavilion Master Kang's mouth twitched. He thought that it might be a simple problem, but from the looks of it, it was something way beyond his ability. The seed water was the most fundamental secret of the glacier plain court. How could he possibly know how to fix something like that? Even Court Chief Wu, who had spent her entire life alongside it, was unable to solve it. What kind of solution could he possibly offer? Honestly speaking, he felt that his luck was truly bad. He'd gone through so much effort to get the slots in hope that the cultivation of their participants of the Master Teacher Tournament could increase significantly through this. Never in his dreams did he expect to stumble by such a problem. Right, Zhongshe. Shaking his head, Pavilion Master Kang was just about to tell the other party that he was helpless before this issue when he remembered the miracle-making Zhongxian. Thus, he turned his gaze to the latter, but the sight he saw made him frown. At this moment, Zhongshe had a bizarre look on his face. He looked as though he had done something wrong, and his face was red in guilt. Zhongshe, what's wrong? It was bizarre for the active Zhongxian to behave in such a manner instead of offering a solution. Court Chief Wu, also sensing that something was amiss, turned her gaze to the latter. Everyone else also followed suit, and soon, all eyes were gathered on him. Hearing the question, Zhongxian's face reddened further. Scratching his head, he said, that. Court Chief Wu, previously, at the Room of Ice and Fire, didn't I tell you that? I cultivated for a while. Court Chief Wu and Pavilion Master Kang was surprised to hear Zhongxian raise up this issue all of the sudden, but they still nodded their heads. The other party did indeed say such words. It was due to this matter that he failed to pass the trial. Scratching his head in embarrassment, Zhongxian continued, cough cough, while I was cultivating, I accidentally exerted too much force and sapped the yin and yang energy in your seed water dry. Chapter 554, Compensation Exerted too much force. Court Chief Wu, Pavilion Master Kang, and the others were stunned. Ruo Huangong's mouth twitched, and he nearly fainted on the spot. He had been wondering why Zhongshe would fail the trial despite the fact that even he could clear it. So, this was the main reason behind it. The latter had already gone ahead and absorbed the seed water dry, rendering the yin-yang lake obsolete. Under such circumstances, was there still a need for him to clear the trial? To think that he was even awed by the other party's openness in admitting his defeat. Looking at it now, the other party was truly shameless. What do we do now given that you have gone ahead to sap the seed water dry? Ruo Huangongzi truly felt like crying now. Ever since he met this fellow, regardless of what he did, be it the selection round or the current trial, there was nothing that went his way. He seemed to be either getting slapped on the face or was on the way to be getting slapped on the face. If not for his strong mental resilience, he would have long gone mad from this. Why you actually sapped the power of yin and yang within the seed water dry? Court Chief Wu finally recovered from her shock and stared at the young man before her with a frenzied look. Yuan. Zhongxian replied sheepishly. Even though he knew the name of that small lake below through the Library of Heaven's Path, he had no idea that it would be so important to the yin-yang lake. He had only wanted to temper his soul for a bit, He didn't think that something so important would turn out to be so fragile, breaking down when it had only boosted his soul cultivation from transcendent mortal 2 Dan to 4 Dan. But thinking deeper into it, that was to be expected. After all, the seed water was only responsible for the production of yin and yang energy. The spiritual energy contained within it for Zhongshen's cultivation was lacking. The bulk of the spiritual energy for the yin-yang lake mainly came from the innumerable spirit stones embedded in the surroundings. As such, the yin and yang energy within the seed water was quickly sapped dry by him. Upon understanding all of this, Zhongshen felt extremely stifled. If only he'd known how easily that thing broke down, as well as its importance, he would have never touched it. Just like his zhenqi cultivation, his soul cultivation could be raised as long as he had sufficient middle-tier spirit stones. He had no way to compensating for the seed water and yin-yang lake. But still, the seed water wasn't completely useless. After all, its effects were different from that of the spirit stones. A soul that had absorbed the yin and yang energy would be similar to have undergone a lightning tribulation, making it even more tangible and purer. This was something that a spirit stone could never hope to achieve. The seed water is hidden deep underground, and the room of ice and fire is only connected to it so that one would be exposed to the power of yin and yang. There's a distance of several thousand meters between both ends. Even at such a distance, you were still able to absorb it. Court Chief Wu found the matter too difficult to believe. Given the distance between the room of ice and fire and the seed water, how did he manage to sap everything dry? Cough cough. When I entered the room of ice and fire, I found a mechanism that exposed a trapdoor. Zhongshen said. Court Chief Wu trembled. That was a mechanism designed by a 5-star celestial designer. Even she could only open it with the token given to her as the court chief. Yet, this fellow was actually able to activate it. How in the world did he do it? More importantly, that was only a small ventilation pipe. It only had 2 purposes: the room of ice and fire trial, and to connect the seed water to the environment so as to nourish it. As such, the ventilation pipe was just a straight vertical opening with a height of several thousand meters. There was nothing there to break one's fall. Jumping down just like that would surely result in death. Besides, if he had really gone down, how in the world did he get back up? It's my fault for absorbing the yin and yang energy of your seed water dry. How about this? I won't take advantage of you. I've taken a good look at your battle technique just now, and the Glacier Plane Quartz Yin formula and Yang formula possess a fatal flaw. If I'm not mistaken, all who cultivate those 2 formulae will die early. Zhongshen felt guilty at destroying the centerpiece of the other party's court. It just so happened that he had taken a good look at the yin and yang attribute disciple just now, and he realized that there were some problems with their cultivation techniques. He hoped to make it up to the other party through this way. You. Court Chief Wu was stunned. The yin and yang formula disciples were usually groomed to take care of the seed water. As such, facing frequent immense pressure from the earth vein and the ice plane, their lifespans were severely limited. Even if they managed to make the breakthrough into transcendent mortal realm, 60 was still a huge hurdle for them. However, this was a secret of their Glacier Plane Court. This Zhongshe actually managed to see through this as well. I can modify your cultivation technique so as to get rid of this trauma in compensation for your loss, Zhongshen said. Modify the cultivation technique? Court Chief Wu shuddered. This flaw had been existent in the heritage for the Glacier Plane Court for innumerable years. If it could really be resolved, that person would really be a benefactor to all of the members of the Origin Flame Glacier Plane. Putting aside destroying a branch, even if he were to destroy 10 of them, the headquarters wouldn't even frown in the least. However, even if it could be modified, it was hard to believe that it could come from the hands of a young man who wasn't even 20 yet. The greatest flaw with those 2 cultivation techniques is that yang and yin energy will accumulate, causing one's meridians to be blocked. Even though yang and yin energy are the most original energy of the world, very few cultivators have a constitution compatible with it. If it were to accumulate for an extended period of time, it was very easy for one's foundation to be destroyed. This is similar to ginseng. Even though it brings many benefits to the human body, there are still some who are incompatible with it. As long as one's constitution is in conflict with it, even the best tonic could turn into lethal poison. Knowing the other party's concerns, Zhongxian continued, if it can be solved at its very root, the compatibility between one's constitution and the yin and yang energy will increase. It won't be difficult for them to regain their lost lifespan. Court Chief Wu didn't cultivate the yin formula or yang formula, but the other disciples did. Furthermore, due to their lower cultivation, Zhongxian's eye of insight was able to work perfectly on them. Through his observations, he realized that most of them were suffering from the same trauma, and if they weren't treated soon, their lifespan could be severely limited. A transcendent mortal realm cultivator's lifespan can usually reach 200 to 300 years. To live until only 60 was truly tragic in comparison. Court Chief Wu was hesitant, but soon, gritting her teeth, she took out 2 manuals and passed them over. Zhongshe, I'll be troubling you for the cultivation techniques. Initially, she was still harboring some doubts, thinking that the other party was trying to make use of this opportunity to peek into their cultivation technique. Only after hearing the explanation did she realize that she was wrongly doubting the other party. The other party was even able to see through the essence and main flaws of their cultivation technique. This meant that the yin formula and yang formula probably didn't mean much to the other party at all. So how could he possibly resort to such underhanded tricks to attain their cultivation technique? Taking the cultivation technique manual, a corresponding book immediately appeared in the library of Heaven's Path. Lowering his head to browse through the manual, it was exactly as what he perceived using his eye of insight previously. Those who cultivated these 2 manuals would suffer a serious trauma that would shorten their lifespans. But fortunately, the flaws of the cultivation techniques were clearly shown through the library of Heaven's Path. Thus, modifying the cultivation technique wasn't too difficult. Soon, Zhongxian picked up his brush and started changing the incorrect portions of the cultivation techniques that resulted in the shortening of lifespan before passing it back. Grabbing hold of the cultivation technique, Court Chief Wu took a look and started trembling. As a transcendent mortal 5-dan expert who had governed over the Glacier Plain Court for many years, she could easily tell whether the modifications were effective or not. And based on her evaluation, she could foresee everyone in the Glacier Plain Court recovering from their trauma if they were to cultivate by this modified manual. To change a cultivation technique right after taking a look. How formidable was this young man? Even Pavilion Master Kang was incompatible of such a feat. Thank you Zhongshe for saving countless members of our Glacier Plain Court. She knew that this cultivation technique would surely cause a huge uproar if she were to report it back the headquarters. Who knows how many current and future members would be saved by cultivating this modified technique? Unable to hold back her agitation any longer, Court Chief Wu kneeled to the floor and kowtowed. Court Chief Wu, what are you doing? Not expecting the other party to kowtow to him, Zhongxian was alarmed. He hurried forward to pull the other party up. Court Chief Wu shook her hands and replied gravely, I am thanking you in the stead of our entire Glacier Plain Court. Please don't turn down our gratitude. Due to the limitations of their cultivation technique, there were more than 100,000 disciples who were unable to live past 60. Once this cultivation technique got out, they would be saved from the tragic fate of an early death. In other words, Zhongshe, with this action, had saved the lives of more than several 100,000 people. Her bow represented the gratitude of all of these people. All right then. Since the other party was adamant, Zhongxian could only concede. On the other hand, Pavilion Master Kang and Ruo Huangong's vision turned dark, and they nearly spurted blood. When they learned that Zhongshe had devoured the yin and yang energy in the seed water clean, they thought that Court Chief Wu would surely kill him. Who knew that in a blink of an eye, the latter would actually be kneeling to him. Zhongshe, what other incredible feats are you capable of? To modify a cultivation technique and solve a problem that had plagued the members of the Origin Flame Glacier Plains for so long. That was no longer a feat that a master teacher was capable of. In fact, Pavilion Master Kang even thought that a 5-star master teacher couldn't possibly fare any better than him. After kowtowing grandly 3 times, court leader Wu finally stood up. Even though the other party had ruined the seed water, in exchange, He had saved countless lives of the Origin Flame Glacier Plain. His contributions had far exceeded his misdoings. The reason why we traveled here is to cultivate at the Yin-Yang Lake in preparation of the Master Teacher Tournament. Since I inadvertently ruined the Yin-Yang Lake, resulting in you being unable to advance your cultivation. How about this? I'll offer you some pointer so that you can reach Transcendent Mortal 4-Dan Pinnacle within a month as compensation. After dealing with Court Chief Wu's matter, Zhongxian turned his attention to Ruo Huan Gongzi. Initially, this fellow came excitedly in hopes of using the Yin-Yang Lake to boost his cultivation. Who could have known that the yin and yang energy contained within the lake would be sapped dry by him, resulting in his plans being messed up? Naturally, Zhongxian should also compensate him as well. Reach Transcendent Mortal 4-Dan Pinnacle within a month. Ruo Huan Gongzi was taken aback. He was a master teacher himself, and his teacher was even the head of the Master Teacher Pavilion. Throughout his life, he had come into contact with all kinds of ingenious solutions to boost one's rate of cultivation. But even so, he knew that it was impossible for him to reach Transcendent Mortal 4-Dan Pinnacle without at least a decade of hard work. To do so in a month. You must be dreaming. When you cultivate, do you feel your spirit sea is being blocked, as though you are trying to force through a narrow tunnel? Zhongxian asked. Ah. Yes. Ruo Huan Gongzi nodded his head. The main reason why the progress in his cultivation had been slow wasn't due to the lack of resources or his lack of knowledge on how to progress further. Rather, the zhenqi in his body seemed to have met with some kind of impetus, making it difficult for him to drive it around his body. The solution is simple. Eat this pill. I guarantee you that you will be able to reach Transcendent Mortal 4-Dan Pinnacle within a month. Zhongxian nonchalantly took out a fist-sized red pill. Ruo Huan Gongzi's body swayed and his face distorted. This is the Grade 2 libido pill that is fed to savage beasts. Chapter 555. The Glacier Plain. As a 4-star master teacher, Ruo Huan Gongzi possessed outstanding eye of discernment. The pill in the other party's hand looked upright, but in truth, it was the libido pill that was fed to savage beasts. The more formidable a savage beast was, the lower the probability of survival of its offspring. Thus, in order to encourage reproduction, beast tamers would feed this pill to the other party. After consuming it, the savage beast would immediately become lively. It would go without rest for several days and nights, thus guaranteeing an offspring. This pill, which was even larger than a fist, should have been meant for just savage beasts. Yet, the other party was asking him to consume it. Ruo Huan Gongzi swallowed a mouthful of saliva, and at this moment, he even felt like dying. That's right. This is indeed a medicine for the consumption of savage beasts. However, it happens to be effective for your condition, so hurry up and consume it. Oh, you have to swallow it whole. You mustn't chew it. Zhongxian instructed. Swallow it whole? Ruo Huan Gongzi staggered. How in the world am I supposed to swallow a fist-sized pill whole? Even if I can stuff it into my mouth, it surely won't go down my throat. Big brother, what kind of grudge do I have with you? You aren't trying to raise my cultivation but kill me, right? You have to swallow it whole. Otherwise, its effects will be reduced. Throwing the pill to Pavilion Master Kang, Zhongxian instructed, since you are his teacher, you should help him swallow it whole. Me? Seeing the libido pill meant for savage beasts in his hand, Pavilion Master Kang's mouth twitched. Raising his head, he asked, can this really help Ruo Huan's cultivation? Of course. Zhongxian nodded. All right then. Gritting his teeth, Pavilion Master Kang walked up to Ruo Huan Gongzi. Ruo Huan, come here and eat your medicine. Ah, don't run. He rushed forward to grab Jun Ruo Huan and pushed him down to the floor. Then, he forced this giant pill into the other party's mouth before using his zhenqi to force it down the other party's throat. Cough cough. Ruo Huan Gongzi kept coughing non-stop, and his saliva flew around the place. At this moment, he no longer bore the slightest resemblance to a gentleman. A beggar would be a more apt description for him. What dashing and refined disposition. It had all disappeared along with the wind at this current moment. Seeing that the latter still had the effort to allow his snot to run, Zhongxian bellowed, Don't get distracted. Guard your vitals and drive your cultivation technique. Yes. Even though he was dismayed, he knew that if he didn't follow the other party's instructions, chances were that he might be forced to swallow yet another one. If he had to undergo that experience once more, he might really die. Thus, he hurriedly sat cross-legged and started cultivating. As soon as he sat down properly, he immediately felt an indescribable heat burning his body, causing his pores to widen. Hong Long. Under the stimulation of medicine, his narrow meridians which had impeded his flow of zhenqi widened, and in an instant, his turbid zhenqi seemed to have turned clear, allowing it to smoothly circulate around his body. Catcher. Catcher. With a crisp sound, he broke through his transcendent mortal 4-dan primary stage bottleneck and advanced to intermediate stage. He really succeeded. Pavilion Master Kang was taken aback. Even Court Chief Wu widened her eyes in shock. They thought that Zhong Xian's method was inconceivable and ridiculous. Thus, they were shocked to see that Ruohuan Gongzi actually made a breakthrough. Only then did they understand that the other party possessed true capability and saw through the root of the problem. There are two ways to solve the slow flow of zhenqi in his body. Firstly, expand his meridians, and secondly, purify his zhenqi. Seeing the shocked gazes of the duo, Zhong Xian chuckled. The libido pill has the effect of boosting a savage beast's blood circulation and widening their meridians. Naturally, it's useful for humans as well. When he was competing with Ruohuan Gongzi in the selection rounds, the latter had once used the ability of a master teacher, and thus, he had the flaws of the latter recorded in the library of Heaven's Path. Even though it had been half a month since then, the other party's cultivation hadn't undergone much change, and thus, the flaw still remained the same. That was why Zhong Xian was able to easily find a solution to the other party's problem. Other than that, more importantly, Zhong Xian had secretly infused a surge of Heaven's Path zhenqi into the pill. After the other party consumed it, not only did his meridians expand, his zhenqi also became purer. As such, it was much easier for him to achieve a breakthrough. Just that, the Heaven's Path zhenqi was too important to allow others to learn of it. If Ruohuan Gongzi were to chew on the pill slowly, there was a possibility that he might realize that something was amiss. That was why he had Pavilion Master Kang force it into the other party's mouth. This way, the medicine could dissolve in his stomach, and the Heaven's Path zhenqi would immediately fuse with the other party's own zhenqi, making it undetectable and untraceable. This. Pavilion Master Kang was stunned. He could sense that there was something deeper to it, but other than the explanation Zhong Xian offered, there didn't seem to be any other plausible reason to it. Then what about after this? Will he be afflicted by libido due to the pill? Pavilion Master Kang asked. This method did allow his student to achieve a breakthrough, but what about after this? Given the size of the pill, the medicinal property must be exceptionally strong. How were they supposed to deal with it? Oh, this. I didn't think that far. Zhong Xian shook his head nonchalantly. You didn't think that far? Pavilion Master Kang staggered. On the other hand, Ruohuan Gongzi felt a stifling sensation at his chest, and his cultivation nearly went berserk. What do you mean by you never thought about it? You made me consume such a huge libido pill, then, you want me to deal with it myself? Don't worry, this is a libido pill aimed at savage beast. Given the inferior intelligence of savage beasts, it is natural for them to cave into them. Surely Ruohuan Gongzi isn't worse than a beast, right? Zhong Xian continued, in fact, this is a precious opportunity to assess his self-control. If a transcendent mortal 4-dan expert can't even do that much, he would truly be too weak-minded. UN. Pavilion Master Kang nodded his head in agreement. Transcendent mortals have an extremely powerful control over their own body, and they could already control their own lust. Compared to achieving a breakthrough, this little bit of libido was indeed insignificant in contrast. Tears streamed down Ruohuan Gongzi's eyes. He thought that there was a solution to ease his urge, but it turned out that he indeed had to cope with it himself. For a moment he felt incomparably depressed. It was hard to tell whether it was due to the stifled sensation in his heart or his body's reaction. A moment later, after reinforcing his cultivation and suppressing the urge, Ruohuan Gongzi walked up to Zhong Xian and bowed. Thank you, Zhongshe. Even though the process was lengthy and cruel, he was still awed by the other party's capability. His resentment toward the other party for devouring the yin and yang energy of the seed water dry had also vanished completely. Honestly speaking, even if the yin-yang lake was perfectly fine, in a month's time, he could only progress from clarifying turbidity realm primary stage to intermediate stage. But now, in the blink of an eye, he had already made the breakthrough. This was already much better than his estimates. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Given your swift Zhenqi flow, as long as you have sufficient middle-tier spirit stones, reaching transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle within a month shouldn't be a problem at all. Zhongxian nodded his head in satisfaction. The Heaven's Path Zhenqi had been infused into the other party's body, turning the originally viscous Zhenqi thinner. This should boost the other party's future speed of cultivation significantly. In a sense, it wasn't wrong to say that it was a blessing in disguise for the other party. Zhongshe, I am grateful for you for helping my student. Please accept these 5 middle-tier spirit stones as compensation. Checking his student's physical condition, Pavilion Master Kang noticed the immense change in the other party. He knew that there was probably more than the libido pill, and grateful to Zhongxian, he took out a jade box and passed it over to Zhongxian respectfully. Conventions dictated that guidance from a master teacher warranted payment. The other party's means were profound even in his standards. In his view, it was already comparable to the ability of a 5-star master teacher. 5 middle-tier spirit stones weren't cheap, but it was probably insufficient to fully repay the Zhongshe for his help. But this was already the full extent of his wealth. He couldn't take out any more money than that even if he wanted to. Pavilion Master Kang, you're being too courteous. Being unable to use the yin-yang lake is a huge mistake on my part. After trading some pleasantries, Zhongxian took the jade box, took out a middle-tier spirit stone, and passed it to Zhen Ruohuan. Cultivate diligently during this period of time with this middle-tier spirit stone. It should be sufficient for you to reach transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle, after which, he passed one to Zhao Ya, and turning to Court Chief Wu, he asked, Court Chief, since the seed water is already ruined, may I borrow the glacier plane of the glacier plane court to use? Even though Zhongxian had absorbed the yin and yang energy from it dry, the earth vein and glacier plane were still intact. What do you intend to do? Court Chief Wu was alarmed. The glacier plane was one of the most important asset of their origin flame glacier plane. Outsiders were strictly forbidden from coming into contact with it. Zhongxian hesitated for a moment before saying, given Zhao Ya's pure yin body, if she were to absorb the glacier plane, her cultivation should improve swiftly. Most likely, she should gain sufficient strength to solve your affliction within half a month. Otherwise, if she were to cultivate as per normal, it would be hard to reach the same level without half a year of effort. Initially, he intended to make use of the yin-yang lake to boost Zhao Ya's cultivation. Since the plan was out of question now, he could only think of an alternative. It was fortunate that the glacier plane was still intact. If they were to make use of this, the effects should be much greater than the supposed yin-yang lake. This. Court Chief Wu was stunned. She didn't expect the other party to still be thinking of her affliction. Suppressing her hastened breathing, Court Chief Wu replied, given that she possesses the pure yin body, she is of utmost importance to us members of the origin flame glacier plane. Putting aside one glacier plane, even if we had to give her our all, it wouldn't mean much at all. I'll bring the glacier plane over. Saying so, she turned around and left. Not too long later, she returned with a jade box in hand. Opening it slowly, an object similar to a spirit stone but exuding a dense aura of coldness diffused in the room. For an instant, it felt as though one would be turned into a block of ice. Others might only feel bone-piercing chill from it, but as soon as Zhao Ya saw the item, her eyes immediately glowed, and she could feel the blood in her body flowing quicker. Passing the jade box to her, Zhongxian instructed, Zhao Ya, follow the cultivation technique I imparted to you a few days ago. If there's anything you are unsure of, feel free to ask me. Yes. Zhao Ya nodded. After making all the arrangements, Zhongxian said, all right, I need to go into seclusion to cultivate now too. Of the 5 middle-tier spirit stones that Pavilion Master Kang gave him, He'd given one to Ruohuan and one to Zhao Yue, leaving him with 3. It should be more than sufficient for him to reach Transcendent Mortal 2 Dan Pinnacle already. Court Chief Wu had already sent a few people to tidy up the rooms for their lodging. Thus, in the next few days, Zhongxian, Ruohuan, and Zhao Yue devoted themselves to their cultivation. Time passed swiftly, and in the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. With the help of the 3 middle-tier spirit stones, Zhongxian managed to reach Transcendent Mortal 2 Dan Pinnacle on the very first day, and he spent the next few days reinforcing his cultivation. On the other hand, just 2 days ago, Ruohuan Gongzi had managed to reach Transcendent Mortal 4 Dan Advanced Stage. But the one who improved the swiftest during this period of time wasn't him but Zhao Yue. In half a month's time, through the help of the glacier plane, Zhao Yue managed to awaken her unique constitution to 30%. At the same time, her cultivation leaped from half transcension all the way to Transcendent Mortal 4 Dan. At the current moment, her cultivation was even stronger than her own teacher's. The further awakening of the pure yin body had also made her disposition much more refined. From afar, she looked like a sacred goddess from the heavens, unsullied by the dirt of the mortal world. Ruohuan Gongzi found feeling of admiration for the latter sprouting in his heart, but recalling Zhongshi's immense strength, he could only obediently retract such thoughts. He was already reduced to such a terrible state despite doing nothing out of hand. If he were to really set his sights on the other party students, he probably wouldn't survive to participate in the master-teacher tournament. Chapter 556 Zhao Yue's Departure 1. After the huge improvement, there was no longer as big of a gap in the cultivation between Zhao Yue and Court Chief Wu. Within a day, Zhongxian successfully utilized the blood of the former to resolve the affliction that had plagued the latter for many years, thus winning him the latter's gratitude. Zhongshe, the envoy from the headquarters, hopes to meet you. By this time, it wouldn't be too much longer before the start of the master-teacher tournament. Just as Pavilion Master Kang and the others intended to leave, Court Chief Wu walked over. She had reported the improvements in the yin formula and yang formula to the headquarters, and due to this matter, the envoy rushed all the way here. All right. Nodding his head, Zhongxian followed Court Chief Wu to the hall of the Glacier Plain Court. This was where Court Chief Wu had hosted them when they first arrived in the Glacier Plain Court. As soon as they arrived, they saw a middle-aged lady sitting at the very center. Noticing their arrival, she turned her head to look at them. Envoy, this is Zhongshe. Court Chief Wu stepped forward and introduced. Zhongshe, I am Liu Xian from the Origin Flame Glacier Plain headquarters. The envoy clasped her fist respectfully. Her eyes were filled with commendation for the young man before her. She was still doubtful when she first received the news, but after looking at the modifications made to the cultivation technique, she was immediately stunned. She thought that a person capable of modifying their cultivation technique would surely be an old elder, but contrary to her expectations, it turned out to be a young man who had yet to reach his 20s. Zhongxian, master teacher. Zhongxian clasped his fist and returned the greetings. At the same time, he began to assess the lady before him, and with just a single look, his eyes couldn't help but narrow in shock. The cultivation of the lady before him felt like the vast ocean unfathomable. Even with his current eye of discernment, he realized he couldn't gauge the full extent of the other party's strength. In fact, the power she harnessed felt even more fearsome than what Zhongxian felt when facing Mo Hunsheng back in the Soul Oracle tomb. Mo Hunsheng had already achieved the cultivation of Transcendent Mortal Realm 9 Dan. To be even stronger than him, how powerful was she? It was no wonder why she could rush here from the headquarter within half a month. Truly fearsome. Not bad. On the other hand, the middle-aged lady, upon seeing the young man's nonchalance despite noticing her fearsome cultivation, nodded her head in commendation. Then, with a chuckle, she said, "There are 2 reasons why I made the journey here from the headquarters." Oh! Zhongxian turned to look at her. Firstly, the modifications Zhongshe made to the cultivation technique had saved innumerable members of our Origin Flame Glacier Plain. On behalf of the entire Glacier Plain Court, thank you. At the same time, we would like to extend our invitation to you to visit the headquarters as a guest. Our Glacier Plan Court is willing to honor you with the privileges equivalent to an elder. Elder. Listening into the conversation by the side, Court Chief Wu's body trembled. The Glacier Plain Court headquarters was one of the most famous and strongest powers across the entire master-teacher continent. As the court chief of a branch, she had a rough idea of the extent of its influence and strength. Even if she were to devote her entire life into it, it would still be impossible for her to become an elder of the headquarter. That was a position only granted to the strongest and most talented of their members. What are the conditions? Zhong Xian asked. Since the other party had pushed such an attractive offer in front of him, naturally, she had to have her own demands as well. After all, there was no such thing as a free lunch in this world. Zhongshe is indeed candid. Seeing how the young man before her didn't get blinded with joy by the offer, Liu Xian nodded her head in commendation. Simple. We hope that Zhongshe can help us solve the problems regarding our cultivation technique and become a permanent resident of our Glacier Plain Court. A permanent resident. In other words, I'm not allowed to leave the premises. Zhong Xian frowned. The fundamental heritage to an occupation lay in its unique techniques. As such, they would never show it to an outsider easily. Since the other party had requested him to solve the other problems regarding their cultivation technique and become a permanent resident of the Glacier Plain Court, her intentions couldn't be any clearer. In order to prevent the cultivation technique from leaking out, Zhong Xian's movements would be tightly restricted. Without permission, he wouldn't be able to leave the premises. If that was the case, what difference was he from a prisoner? Zhongshe, please don't misunderstand. Leaving isn't a problem, but you'll have to pass the loyalty test of the Glacier Plain Court first so as to ensure that you won't betray us. After all, you should know how important the heritage of an occupation is. We also have to make precautions against having our cultivation techniques leaked out. Having her intentions pointed out directly, Envoy Liu Xian felt slightly awkward. I understand that you have your own considerations. However, I can't agree to your invitation. Zhong Xian shook his hands. Becoming a prisoner? You must be joking. I don't have such masochistic tendencies. Despite being rejected outright, Envoy Liu Xian had no intentions of giving up yet. Actually, our Glacier Plain Court isn't a bad place to be. All of our members are ladies, and as long as Zhongshe desires for it, you can marry as many of them as you wish. The Glacier Plain Court was filled with incomparably beautiful ladies, and there were quite a few powerful male guests who decided to reside there permanently out of lust. Let's talk about the second matter instead. Zhong Xian shook his head. Restricted by his physical condition, he had no choice but to become a 9-star master teacher before 30 to ensure his survival. Compared to that, prestige and lust seemed negligible in comparison. This was also the reason why, even though he knew that Princess Mo Yu, Shunbai Yu, and a few other ladies were interested in him, he still remained unmoved. Given that his life was hanging by a thread, how could he possibly have the time and effort to be thinking about romance? Seeing the other party rejecting her offer, a hint of disappointment appeared on Envoy Liu Xian's face. However, she soon adjusted her mental state, turned to look at the young man before her, and spoke seriously. The second matter is regarding your student. Zhao Wei. Zhong Xian frowned. The pure yin body is extremely important to our origin flame Glacier Plain. I believe that Court Chief Wu should have told you that before, Envoy Liu Xian said. Court Chief Wu did say something along that line, but she didn't elaborate on the reason behind it. Previously, Court Chief Wu had only said that the fate of the Glacier Plain Court was reliant on the existence of a pure yin body cultivator. The heritage of the origin flame Glacier Plain originated from an old ancestor possessing the pure yin body. As such, there is a rule stating that the highest court chief of the Glacier Plain Court must possess the pure yin body. It has been 1,000 years since the death of the previous court chief, but we have been unable to find a single person who possesses the pure yin body. Left without a leader, many other powers began to exploit the weakness of the Glacier Plain Court, and to date, it's already on the verge of collapsing. Envoy Liu Xian heaved a sigh of relief. If we could find a successor possessing the pure yin body to take on the mantle, our Glacier Plain Court might be able to avert the dissolution and rise again once more. Highest court chief. Zhong Xian was taken aback. He didn't expect this to be the reason why they wanted Zhao Yue. Indeed. Envoy Liu Xian nodded. Thus, I hope to bring Zhao Yue back to the headquarters and find a way to quickly awaken her unique constitution so that she could inherit the position of the court chief as soon as possible. I can also awaken her unique constitution myself. Zhong Xian shook his hands. Even though both his strength and the resources he possessed were lacking, he was still able to induce swift growth in Zhao Yue. He had the confidence in awakening the latter's unique constitution eventually. I've heard of Zhongshi's affairs and I know that you're a capable person. It's indeed likely that Zhao Yue's pure yin body will be fully awakened one day if she were to stay by you. However, Zhongshi, have you ever considered how long it would take for that to happen? 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, or perhaps, even a century? Envoy Liu Xian stared deeply at Zhong Xian. The awakening of a unique constitution only becomes harder the further one progresses. The resources required for it will grow exponentially. Even if Zhongshi is willing to give in without any expectation for returns, do you think that Zhao Yue is willing to quietly accept so much from you? This. Zhong Xian found himself unable to refute the other party's words. Indeed. Similar to the cultivating, the awakening of a unique constitution would only grow harder and harder the further one progressed. Even if he was capable of obtaining the required resources to help Zhao Yue, could she really bear accepting this much from him? Given Zhao Yue's nature, this was something she wouldn't be able to accept. Furthermore, she couldn't spend her entire life living under Zhong Xian's protection. The purpose of a teacher was to guide one down the right path, not to give them everything that they required. Envoy Liu Xian continued, if she were to come to our glacier plain court, we can offer her the most perfect inheritance and the most generous cultivation resources. She would be able to awaken her unique constitution in the shortest time possible, thus becoming a figure able to shake the entire continent. Given how deeply you care for your student, you should also hope that she would become independent and accomplish something of her own as soon as possible. Zhong Xian fell silent. As a teacher, he had to think of the long-term benefit of his students. He had come to the same thoughts. While he could guarantee that he would be able to awaken Zhao Yue's unique constitution and groom her to become one of the strongest experts in the future, admittedly, he would be unable to do it as quickly as the glacier plain court could. After all, just the resources in itself had created an irreconcilable gap. Besides, given that the previous court chiefs all possessed pure yin body, they probably possessed a complete inheritance on the method to awakening the unique constitution. In a way, this was much more efficient and effective than him fumbling around for a solution. My opinions are of little importance. The ultimate decision is on her. Regardless of what her choice is, I'll support her. Zhong Xian shook his head. He was just a teacher. While he had the responsibility to guide his students down the right path, he didn't have the right to dictate their future. If Zhao Yue intends to follow the envoy of the glacier court plain, he would support her decision. And if she refuses, he wouldn't allow anyone to force her into the decision, not even the mighty glacier plain court. Teacher, I'm willing to leave with her. After a moment of silence, Zhao Yue walked over with a determined expression. You're willing to leave with her? That's right. I've seen everything that teacher has done for us, and I hope that one day, I'll be able to do something for you too. Walking forward, Zhao Yue clenched her trembling fists tightly. And this is an opportunity for that. She had clearly seen everything her teacher had done for her throughout this difficult journey, and it distressed her that she was unable to do anything in return. But now, as long as she agreed to follow the envoy, she would gain control over the immense power known as the Glacier Plain Court. With such backing, she would gain the strength to support her teacher, standing side by side with him instead of just dragging him down. More importantly, she had some private interest in this matter as well. Perhaps, with the rise in her position, she might be able to fulfill this wish of hers. Zhong Xian sighed. You need not rush to a decision. I'll give you 3 days to consider it properly. No matter what you decide, you'll have my support. There's no need for that, I've already thought it through and this is my decision. With reddened eyes, Zhao Yue kneeled onto the floor and kowtowed. Teacher, thank you for your grooming and your support. Regardless of where I go in the future, I'll forever remain as your student. Get up. Knowing that his student had already made up her mind, Zhongxian nodded his head as he pulled her up. Eagles had to undergo tribulations before they could soar freely in the skies. Students were the same as well. No matter how reluctant he was, he still had to allow the harsh storms to temper her, so that she could mature and become a true expert. Yes. Zhao Yue stood up. Since the decision was clear, there was nothing much for Zhongxian to hesitate over. Thus, he turned over to the envoy with menacing threat gleaming in his eyes. Envoy Liu Xian, I hope that all you said is true. If I find there's any falsehood in your words and you mean my student harm, not only will I kill you, I'll eradicate the entire Glacier Plain Court as well. He might be weak now, but if the other party meant his student harm, he didn't mind barging into the Glacier Plain Court and wiping this power off the face of the world. Chapter 557 Zhao Yue's departure to eradicate the Glacier Plain Court? Envoy Liu Xian was stunned by those words. That's right. I mean what I say. Zhongxian's gaze was indifferent, but there seemed to be some compelling authority behind it. This. If anyone else were to say such words, Envoy Liu Xian would have surely thought that the other party had a screw loose. After all, the overwhelming might of the Glacier Plain Court was known even throughout the entire continent. Even 9-star master teachers would dare not utter such words, let alone some 4-star master teacher. For an insignificant figure which she could kill with a single pinch to actually utter such arrogant words. If it was under any other circumstances, she would surely mock the other party for his arrogance. But for some reason, looking into the determined gaze of this young man, her heart couldn't help but beat with slight apprehension. It seemed as though a subconscious part of her was saying that the young man before her might just really do as he said. Don't worry, our Glacier Plain Court values its words. Reneging on promises is something we despise. She instinctively gave her guarantee without much thought. UN. Hearing the words of the other party, Zhongxian felt a heavy burden weighing on his heart being released. Then, turning to Zhao Yue, he said, if you find yourself unable to cope there, you can come to look for me at any master-teacher pavilion. Don't worry, even when following behind me, you'll still become one of the strongest experts in the world. Yes. Zhao Yue nodded her head. All right, I'll be leaving then. Since everything was settled, there was no longer any reason for Zhongxian to remain here. Thus, he began walking toward the entrance. Teacher. Seeing the back of her teacher slowly disappearing in the distance, Zhao Yue kneeled down and kowtowed 8 times. Her determined gaze was free of any hesitation. Teacher, I won't let you down. I'll surely become one of the strongest experts in the world. You're a good student. Helping Zhao Yue up, Envoy Liu Xian gazed at the silhouette in the distance and sighed. He's a good teacher as well. He's the good teacher, but I'm not a good student. Zhao Yue shook her head. For her, he was willing to go through so much hardship. Yet, she had chosen to leave his side. Don't worry. Once you awaken your pure yin body fully and become the court chief, it won't be difficult for you to repay your debt to him. Rather, if you were to follow behind him, you would just impede his progress. There's no banquet in this world that doesn't end. All students have to leave their teacher's side eventually. This is the way of the world. After all, one can't possibly stay behind the protection of one's teacher forever. Envoy Liu Xian continued, if he had tried to forcefully keep you with him, he wouldn't have been a good teacher. Everyone had to grow up at some point. Even the strongest expert in the world couldn't possibly keep his student with him at all time, and even more so, the student shouldn't become completely reliant of the teacher. Only after undergoing storms could one truly become independent. I know that. Just that. I am reluctant to part with him. Zhao Yue's eyes turned red. Turning around, she walked away. Envoy Liu Xian knew that she would be in low spirits for a short period of time, but as long as she could turn the pain of parting into her drive, she would grow swiftly in the time to come. Only through such experiences could she temper her mental resilience. While Zhao Yue's departure wasn't planned, it wasn't beyond expectations. In truth, Zhongxian had already been harboring some thoughts of having his own students train independently to temper themselves. Just that, he wasn't able to bring himself to do it. Since such an opportunity came by, it would be a waste if he were to restrain his student instead. Seated cross-legged in the room on top of the aerial spirit beast, Zhongxian was motionless as if a statue. Ruo Huangongzi couldn't help but ask, "Teacher, it has been 5 days since Zhongsha has been in this state. Is he all right?" Ever since the trio left the glacier plain court, Zhongsha had been seated on the same spot, not moving in the slightest. He couldn't help but feel perplexed as to what the other party was doing. "I've no idea either." Pavilion Master Kang shook his head in worry. Knowing how much Zhongsha cared for his students, could it be that he was in such a state due to his depression from Zhao Yue's departure? Wait, could this be? He glanced at Zhongxian doubtfully once more when his eyebrows suddenly shot up in disbelief. "What's wrong, teacher?" Noticing the peculiarity in his teacher, Ruo Huangongzi hurriedly turned his gaze over. "This isn't due to excessive sadness but soul enlightenment," Pavilion Master Kang exclaimed. Soul enlightenment. Ruo Huangongzi was baffled. He had never heard of such a phrase before. UN. Even though Zhongsha is meditating, there isn't the slightest disturbance in the spiritual energy around him. In other words, he isn't cultivating his zhenqi. But to remain seated for 5 days despite not cultivating, it could only mean that he managed to dive into a state of enlightenment. Pavilion Master Kang explained. Even though cultivation was an extremely mundane task, it wasn't easy for one to remain completely motionless for 5 days straight doing nothing at all. The more plausible reason was that the other party's mind had managed to reach a unique state that propelled the maturing of his state of mind. And this was known as soul enlightenment. Soul enlightenment is a mental state that only comes by chance. If a master teacher succeeds in reaching such a state, his soul depth will increase significantly. Pavilion Master Kang said in awe. Given how the young man before him was able to beguile him with his impartation of heaven's will, it could only mean that the other party's soul depth of at least the same level as his. It was difficult to imagine how powerful he would be once he broke out of this soul enlightenment. The more powerful he is, the better it'll be. It's about time for the rise of Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Pavilion Master Kang's eyes glowed in anticipation. The stronger Zhongsha became, the more likely Myriad Kingdom Alliance would achieve outstanding results in the Master Teacher Tournament. As the head of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance Master Teacher Pavilion, having a Master Teacher under him achieve such astounding results could be considered as a huge honor. The Myriad Kingdom Alliance had been suppressed for too long. It was about time for them to cleanse away their previous shame and rise up above the other powers. Excited, Pavilion Master Kang turned to Ruo Huangongzi and instructed, "Don't disturb Zhongsha, you should focus on your cultivation as well. Before returning to Myriad Kingdom City, you must reach Clarifying Turbidity Realm Pinnacle. Otherwise, don't bother calling me your teacher." What? Ruo Huangongzi was dumbstruck. What did the other party undergoing soul enlightenment have to do with him? Why was his teacher suddenly urging him to cultivate? But knowing that his teacher was saying this for his own good, Ruo Huangongzi obediently sat down, took out the middle-tier spirit stone that Zhongsha gave him, and continued to cultivate. Unlike Zhongxian, the significance of a middle-tier spirit stone was great to his cultivation. Just one was sufficient to raise his cultivation from Clarifying Turbidity Realm primary stage to pinnacle. As such, the spirit stone was still concentrated with spiritual energy. Pavilion Master Kang's guess was spot on. Zhongxian was indeed in the midst of a soul enlightenment. While the separation with Zhao Yue had left him slightly down, this experience had also given him a greater insight into the true essence, the responsibilities of a teacher. Memories of his past ever since his transmigration flashed through his head as though a movie screen. Slowly, as though a jade that was being tempered, excessive thoughts flowed out from his mind, bringing him tranquility. Only after a heavy storm would a rainbow emerge. While Zhao Yue's departure was a trial for her, the same could be said for Zhongxian as well. As his mind broadened, his soul depth began rising slowly from 14.1. Unlike the Book of Heaven's path and soul tempering of a mentor's calligraphy which induced an instantaneous surge in his soul depth, Soul enlightenment was a gradual process. 14:1, 14:2, 14:3. In just 5 days, Zhongxian's soul depth had increased by 2.0, reaching a total of 16.1. Who? He finally opened his eyes. His gaze was composed and deep. It seemed to compel others to trust him. A soul depth of 16.1 was already comparable to that of a 5-star master teacher. Previously, to beguile Pavilion Master Kang, he had to utilize words to shake the mental resilience of the other party before he could succeed. But now, as long as he executed the impartation of heaven's will, the other party would be coaxed into doing anything instantaneously. On top of that, his eye of insight had also become more potent than before, allowing him to peer even deeper into all that his gaze fell upon. At the same time, he also managed to reinforce his cultivation in the past 5 days. As long as he willed it, he would be able to reach transcendent mortal 3-dan yin-yang realm immediately. I should focus on my cultivation now. The rise in soul depth had given him a deeper insight into cultivation as a whole, thus boosting his rate of cultivation. Even though he didn't have any more middle-tier spirit stones at hand, his cultivation still rose quickly. The Master-Teacher tournament was about to begin. He had no time to waste. While Zhongxian and the others were busy cultivating on top of an aerial savage beast, an elder wearing a bamboo hat approached the city gates of Myriad Kingdom City. Looking at the grand city walls, he clenched his fists tightly together. Myriad Kingdom City. I'm finally here. I must grasp onto this opportunity to get back what I lost and exact my vengeance. A look of savagery appeared on the face of the elder as a malevolent aura shrouded him. Staring deep into his eyes, one could nearly see the frenzy and hatred that clouded his mind. A gust of wind blew, and the left sleeve of the black robe he was wearing fluttered freely in the wind, revealing his missing arm. If Zhongxian were here, he would surely have recognized the other party. That elder was the old ancestor of Shenyuan Kingdom, Ding Hong. Back then, he had burned his essence blood to escape, and after 3 months of journey, he finally arrived at Myriad Kingdom City, the very core of the alliance. He desired for vengeance. The other party had actually killed his descendant and destroyed his kingdom, turning him into nothing more than a roaming vagrant now. How could he possibly simply let this grudge go? I mustn't go to the alliance head residence. Given how even the envoy was sided toward him, it would be suicidal if I were to head there. Even though hatred had filled his mind, he didn't allow it to cloud his judgment. He knew very clearly what his current plight was, and to exact vengeance, recklessness was something he couldn't risk. The envoy back then turned a blind eye to the downfall of the royal family, even going to the extent of supporting a female emperor. If he were to head to the alliance head residence in an attempt to redress his grievances, the odds were that he would only be silenced. Given that Zhongxian is a master teacher, heading to the master teacher pavilion is out of question too. Within the past month, news about the young genius becoming a 4-star master teacher and becoming a representative of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance for the Master Teacher Tournament had been spreading like wildfire. Naturally, Ding Hong had also caught wind of such news. As a 4-star master teacher who was going to represent the Master Teacher Pavilion in the Master Teacher Tournament, wasn't it clearly a futile attempt to report the other party to the Master Teacher Pavilion? There isn't anyone in Myriad Kingdom City that I can rely on. Seems like I can only depend on other powers. Viciousness flashed across his eyes. Even though the Alliance head residence and the Master Teacher Pavilion wouldn't stand up for him. Wasn't the Master Teacher Tournament just around the corner? Since no one in the Alliance would redress his grievances, he could seek the Master Teacher Pavilions from other powers. Given the monstrous capability of that Zhongxian, the other powers would surely be delighted to find a reason to lay their hands on him. Ding Hong didn't just want Zhongxian to die, he wanted to rip the other party's reputation to shreds as well. There is a total of 28 powers involved in the tournament. Mingxia Empire and Hunghai Empire are of equal strength to the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, so it might be difficult to render their assistance. Thus, I should approach the stronger Cascading Sand Sect and Frigid Gale Sect, or perhaps, even the strongest Fleeting Cloud Sect. Ding Hong thought. As the previous emperor of a conferred kingdom, He had a clear picture on the various powers located in the vicinity of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Chapter 558. Ding Hong's scheme. Even though this fleeting cloud sect was only a sect, it had a total of 5 half-5-star master teachers. Of the 77 master teacher tournaments held, it had been the champion 36 times. On the other hand, the best result the Myriad Kingdom Alliance had achieved so far was only 23rd place, 5th from the bottom. It was due to this that Ding Mu had wanted to be initiated into the fleeting cloud sect back then. As long as I can render their assistance, it wouldn't be a problem for me to become the new alliance head. Needless to say, exact vengeance. A menacing gleam flickered across Ding Hong's eyes. Given the strength of the fleeting cloud sect, there would be no one who would dare to oppose him in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. However, to them, I am no better than an ant. Without paying a suitable price, it'll be impossible to goad them into action. Naturally, it was impossible to render the help of those behemoths so easily. Without sufficient benefits on the table, it would be impossible to drive them into action. Not to mention, dealing with Zhongxian meant making an enemy out of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Ding Hong knew that he held insufficient weight to get them to go that far. If he was still a transcendent mortal Wundan cultivator, they might still have spared him a glance. However, the burning of his blood essence had caused his cultivation to drop to the Jizuan realm. With his current level of cultivation, he was no better than an ant before those immense behemoths. He was an existence that they could easily crush to death. Unless I use that news as leverage to strike a deal with them. Ding Hong's eyes turned cold as he recalled what Ding Mu had said to him previously. His grandson had once talked to him about the matter after he got into trouble. The reason why he got into a fight with that Zhongxian was due to a treasure the latter had in his possession, a treasure that would send any master teacher into a frenzy. Kong Shi's handwritten letter. There's no master teacher who wouldn't be moved by this artifact. If I were to reveal this news to the fleeting cloud sect, even if I don't say much about the matter, they would surely be driven into action. Ding Hong gritted his teeth tightly. Kong Shi's handwritten letter, one of the greatest treasures a master teacher could obtain. Ding Hong didn't think that anyone could resist its allure, not even those half-5-star master teachers of fleeting cloud sect. Zhongxian would surely become a target for all of these powers if he were to leak the news. Just as Ding Hong was in the midst of looking for the fleeting cloud sect's dwelling place, a thought suddenly struck him. No, this won't do. Given the strength of the fleeting cloud sect, once they learn of the news, they would surely try to silence me so as to prevent any news from getting out. If the fleeting cloud sect decided to kill him so as to seal off the news, he wouldn't be able to retaliate at all. After all, given the importance of Kong Shi's handwritten letter, it would be best if fewer people knew of it. Not to mention, a 4-star master teacher was involved in the matter as well. Actually, why don't I send a message each to Fleeting Cloud Sect, Mingxia Empire, Hunghai Empire, Cascading Sand Sect, Frigid Gale Sect? If I were to send them letters simultaneously and invite all of their heads out at once, they could curb one another. If so, it would become difficult for them to kill me. Regardless, Ding Hong used to be the emperor of a conferred kingdom. Politics was like a second nature to him, and it didn't take him long to find a solution to the problem. After all, it doesn't matter to me who receives Kong Shi's handwritten letter eventually. His main goal was to kill Zhongxian and take back his country. Even if he were to obtain Kong Shi's handwritten letter, it would be completely useless to him. Since that was the case, he might as well use it as a trading term. Alright, I'll do just that then. After analyzing the matter carefully and confirming that there was no problem, he would be able to ensure his safety while getting his vengeance. Ding Hong nodded his head in satisfaction. Walking into the streets, he soon vanished amidst the huge crowd. It was an ordinary-looking mansion sitting in the middle of Myriad Kingdom City, but all of the participating powers in the Master Teacher Tournament knew that it was currently resided by the most popular contender for the champion placing, Fleeting Cloud Sect. The Fleeting Cloud Sect was created by a half-5-star Master Teacher, Mo Liuyun. While it was considered to be a branch of the Master Teacher Pavilion, it was also an independent entity that was no different from the other empires. Within the sect, Only master teachers had the qualification to become the sect leader or take on high-standing roles. However, it was still densely populated by members of the other occupations as well. In fact, there were quite a handful of transcendent mortal 5-dan experts within their members. This was the reason why the Fleeting Cloud sect was considered to be the number one power among the 28 in the region. Luo Xian, as the greatest genius of Fleeting Cloud sect, was the most popular contender for champion of this master teacher tournament. He was only 29 this year, but his cultivation had already reached transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle. At the current moment, the person in question had just completed his cultivation. Stretching his back lazily, he walked out of the room. Senior. But before he could get far, a young man suddenly rushed up to him. What's wrong? Luo Xian frowned. Reporting to Senior, someone has just delivered a letter, saying to deliver it to the sect leader. The young man said. Is my teacher a person whom anyone could just send a letter to? Luo Xian flung his sleeves. The leader of the Fleeting Cloud sect, Luo Huang, happened to be his teacher. As a half 5-star master teacher possessing a cultivation of transcendent mortal 5-dan consonant spirit realm pinnacle, it was beneath him to allow just anyone to send him a letter. Where's the letter? After harumphing, Luo Xian stretched out his hand. Here it is. The young man passed it over. Luo Xian was just about to tear it open when the young man hurriedly said, the person who delivered the letter said that there's a special seal on the letter. If it isn't the sect leader who opens it, it will be destroyed immediately. You actually believe this kind of nonsense? If there's truly a seal, do you think that I, as a 4-star pinnacle master teacher, wouldn't notice it? Luo Xian harumphed. As a 4-star pinnacle master teacher, he possessed exceptionally sharp eyes. If the other party had truly left something of that sort on the letter, there was no reason why he wouldn't notice it. But it was clear that there was nothing at all. The other party was just trying to hoodwink the ignorant. Tearing the letter open, Luo Xian saw a card in it. Lowering his head to take a glance, a frown crept onto Luo Xian's forehead. There was only a line of word written on the card, in 3 days' time at Sea Gazing Gazebo. News regarding Kong Shi's relic. There was no signing off, and there was no name either. Even the handwriting looked messy. Clearly, the other party had found someone to write in his place. Keeping the card, Luo Xian asked with a frown, who is the one who delivered the letter? It's a man dressed in black robe. I didn't catch a good look at his appearance, the young man quickly replied. Where is he? He has already left. The young man answered. All right. Don't speak of this matter to anyone else. I'll go look for teacher right now, Luo Xian instructed before heading to the centermost residence in the residence. It didn't take too long for him to arrive at his destination. In the courtyard, a middle-aged man was currently in the midst of executing a fist art. His movements were slow, but the powerful wind generated with every single punch of his created a huge pressure on those looking at it. The leader of the Fleeting Cloud sect, Luo Huang, the strongest expert of the 27 powers neighboring the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Upon seeing the other party's arrival, sect leader Luo Huang retracted his fist and smiled. You're here. Teacher. Luo Xian clasped his fist and said, someone has just delivered a letter. A letter? Wiping his sweat with a towel, Luo Huang turned to look at Luo Xian. He knew this disciple of his very well. If it wasn't for something important, it was impossible for the latter to pay him such an abrupt visit. To interrupt his cultivation for a single letter, the letter had to be of the utmost importance. Yes. Luo Xian passed the card over. Kong Shi's relic. Taking a look, sect leader Luo Huang frowned. What's your view on it? Given that this matter concerns Kong Shi, I think that it is unlikely to be a lie. Besides, it's better to be safe than sorry for such matters. Luo Xian replied. Empyrean Kong Shi didn't leave behind too many personal possessions when he departed. If what that is written on the note is true, then regardless of what the relic is, its value will be, in the truest sense, priceless. Becoming a 5-star master teacher wouldn't be a problem at all if I can obtain it. Sect leader Luo Huang nodded his head. Kong Shi was the founder of the Master Teacher Pavilion, the very first master teacher in the world. No matter how insignificant the relic he left behind was, just the essence that it harnessed could bring unimaginable benefits to those in possession of it. Regardless of whether the content of the note was true or not, this was an opportunity they couldn't pass up. This means that Luo Xian gazed at his teacher to confirm his intention. Of course, we have to take a look. Sect leader Luo Huang nodded his head. Right, where is this sea-gazing gazebo? It's the most famous and bustling tavern in Myriad Kingdom City. Most probably, the other party is hoping to make use of the crowd to protect himself, Luo Xian replied. As a 4-star master teacher, how could he possibly be unable to discern the little schemes the other party had in mind? That probably isn't just it. Sect leader Luo Huang contemplated for a moment before shaking his head. Not just it. What does teacher mean? Luo Xian was bewildered. Simple. Since the other party delivered the letter to us, the chances are that they delivered it to others as well. Most probably, he intends to gather all of us at the sea-gazing gazebo in hopes of jacking up the price for his information, sect leader Luo Huang said. Jacking up the prices? Damn it, I'll send someone to capture that fellow immediately. Narrowing his eyes, Luo Xian came to a realization and immediately prepared to rush out of the room. As one of the strongest powers in the region, wealth was not something the fleeting Cloud sect was lacking. The only fear they had was that this news wasn't exclusive. If the other powers were to learn of the existence of Kong Shi's relic and vied with them over it, they would be forced into a very troublesome position. In fact, out of bitterness of failing to obtain the relic, some might even leak the news to the headquarters. If so, all of the efforts spent on vying for the relic would have ended in vain. There's no need for that. It's already too late. Sect leader Luo Huang shook his head. Putting aside how the one who delivered the letter is unlikely to be the one spearheading the entire matter, even if he is, you can't guarantee that we're the first one that he visited. Perhaps, the other powers might have already learnt of the matter. Then, what do we do? Luo Xian asked in a panic. Sect leader Luo Huang waved his hands. Suppress the news, don't let anyone learn of it. In 3 days, you will accompany me to the sea-gazing gazebo. I would like to see who that person is personally, and which of Kong Shi's relics he possesses information of. If it turns out to be a farce, even if we remain idle, I believe the other powers would be more than willing to make the other party understand what living hell is like. Yes. Luo Xian nodded. The same sight was also occurring in the dwelling of the other powers. Mingxia Empire, Hunghai Empire, Cascading Sand Sect, Frigid Gale Sect, White Alios Sect, Spiraling Cosmos Sect. The top few powers who had come to attend the Master Teacher Tournament had received the same letter, and the leaders of the respective groups had seen the content on the card. All of the powers immediately became restless. The experts of the various powers were waiting expectantly for what that was to come in 3 days. They wanted to see what kind of incredible person had delivered them the letter, and what news of Kong Shi's relic he had with him. While all of this was happening, Zhongxian was sitting by the side of the window in the room on top of the aerial spirit beast. He was looking at the fleeting white clouds and mountains with a depressed look. Since they have taken away my student, I should have asked them for some spirit stones as compensation. Even if not that, if I had offered that envoy Liu Xian some pointers, I could have probably earned a hefty sum as well. How could I have been so dumb? Offer envoy Liu Xian some pointers? Looking at the regretful expression on the other party's face and the mutterings that came out from his mouth, Pavilion Master Kang's body stiffened. Chapter 559, Ding Hong's condition. Zhongxian felt deep regret. To him, every single middle-tier spirit stone was an extraordinarily valuable commodity. However, to that envoy Liu Xian, given how powerful she was and that she came from the headquarters, it could very well be no different from spare chain. It was a pity that when Zhao Yue left, Zhongxian was a little overwhelmed by self-reproach. On top of that, his pride also didn't allow him to lower his head. He didn't want others to think that he was selling his student off for spirit stones. But still, he couldn't help but feel that it was a great pity given his current plight. Even if not for his student, he could request for spirit stones just by offering the other party pointers. There was no floor which was beyond the heavens. Through the library of Heaven's Path, Zhongxian was confident that he would be able to offer invaluable advice to the other party on her cultivation and receive some compensation in exchange. With this compensation, his cultivation from there onward would be smooth sailing. He wouldn't have to worry about the lack in resources anymore. His students would also be entitled to the best training resources as well. But to miss the opportunity by like that. Forget it, there's no use crying over spilt milk. Knowing that it would be difficult for him to meet another expert of Envoy Liu Xian's caliber once more, Zhongxian decided to let the matter go. He then turned to Pavilion Master Kang and asked, "Pavilion Master, may I know who possesses the most middle-tier spirit stones in Myriad Kingdom City?" Middle-tier spirit stones? Pavilion Master Kang was taken aback. These items are cultivation necessities. Every prestigious clan would at least have one or two in their possession. But if you're talking about who possesses the most middle-tier spirit stones, it could only be those powers who have traveled here to participate in the Master-Teacher Tournament. Powers? Zhongxian was perplexed. Pavilion Master Kang contemplated for a moment before saying, "Indeed. The Myriad Kingdom Alliance is considered weak even among its own tier. As such, the quantity of middle-tier spirit stones it can obtain from Huanyu Empire is severely limited. On the other hand, the Fleeting Cloud Sect, White Alios Sect, and Spiraling Cosmos Sect, due to their overwhelming strength and the backing of half 5-star master teachers, obtained the most middle-tier spirit stones each time. While it would be difficult for me to even take out 3 of them, their pavilion masters or sect leaders would be able to easily take out a dozen or even more. So many. Zhongxian's eyes lit up. If he could obtain a dozen or so, he would surely be able to reach Transcendent Mortal 3-Dan Yin-Yang Realm Pinnacle easily. Complementing such strength with his soul cultivation, he would be a match for even Transcendent Mortal 5-Dan experts. Cupping his lower jaw, Zhongxian thought, "It seems like I must find an opportunity to plunder some from them." Looking at the other party's expression, the edges of Pavilion Master Kang's lips twitched. Those are powerful sects and empires. It is already a huge blessing that they aren't plundering from us, and yet, you still hope to steal spirit stones from them? Cough cough. Zhongshu, the minimum cultivation required for a half 5-star master teacher is the consonant spirit realm. Such experts possess astounding strength that we can't hope to match up to. Furthermore, our Myriad Kingdom Alliance can't be said to be in friendly relations with them. Afraid that this fellow might really do something insane, Pavilion Master Kang couldn't help but advise him from the side. In the consonant spirit realm, through the nurturing of one's soul and its harmonization with the flesh, one's fighting prowess would be multiplied. It is one thing for them to not cause trouble in Myriad Kingdom City, and yet, you still dare to set your gaze on their spirit stones. Aren't you just looking for trouble? Don't worry, I won't go overboard. Zhongxian nodded his head before falling into deep thought. It would be clearly impossible for him to steal the spirit stones from them. While his cultivation did advance greatly recently, he was still a way off from being able to match a consonant spirit realm cultivator. If he were to utilize all of his means, he might still be able to match a consonant spirit realm primary stage cultivator. However, against an intermediate stage or even higher, the only course of action he could take was to escape as far as he could. From Pavilion Master Kang's words, it seemed like these sects had plenty of consonant spirit realm intermediate stage and advanced stage cultivators. But while Zhongxian couldn't fight them squarely, hoodwinking them shouldn't be a problem. Back then, in Tianxian Kingdom, when his pockets were completely empty, and his cultivation was low, didn't he still manage to convince innumerable experts to bow down willingly to Yangsha? Seems like I have to find a way to get to them and offer them guidance or cure their illnesses so as to earn some middle-tier spirit stones. Zhao Yue's departure had given him a drive like never before. If he was sufficiently strong, he would be able to easily obtain the cultivation resources his students needed. There would be no need for his own students to follow behind others. In the end, it all boiled down to him being weak. Without sufficient strength, everything else was just empty talk. Thus, his priority at hand was to gather as many middle-tier spirit stones as possible and raise his cultivation. While Zhongxian was planning to sweep away the spirit stones of those sects and empires, Sect leader Luo Huang and Luo Xian arrived at the sea-gazing gazebo. Sect leader Luo, why are you here too? Before they could walk into the tavern, they heard a surprised exclaim. Turning around, they saw a middle-aged man standing not too far away. It was the leader of White Alio's sect, Bai Kaiji. A consonant spirit realm advanced stage expert, half 5-star master teacher. Sect leader Bai, you're here too. Having guessed this much, sect leader Luo Huang wasn't surprised in the least. On the contrary, he chuckled softly. You were the one who sent the letter to me? Seeing the other party's confident expression, sect leader Bai was perplexed. I am not so bored as to waste my time with this. If I really managed to obtain news of Kongsha's relic, I would have surely claimed it for my own already. Do you think I would waste my words with you? Sect leader Luo Huang shook his head. Most probably, we aren't the only ones that he contacted. I wonder who is the mastermind behind this matter. In any case, let's head in first. UN. Sect leader Bai was stunned for a moment before comprehending the situation. He nodded his head, and the duo walked into the tavern side by side. As soon as they walked in, they immediately saw several familiar silhouettes. Of the 27 powers that came to Myriad Kingdom City, 14 were gathered here. Furthermore, the mastermind clearly did his homework. These 14 powers were ranked at the front among the 28 powers in the region. Asking around, they realized that everyone that had gathered here had received the same letter that spoke of Kongsha's relic. To sect leader Luo Huang's disappointment, no one seemed to know any more than that. The mastermind who sent the letters to all of them and the relic mentioned within the card remained a mystery to everyone. Could this be a hoax? Someone expressed their doubt. Unlikely. Even though we aren't based in Myriad Kingdom City, given our combined influence, it would just be a matter of time before we catch on to the traces of that person. A sect leader harumphed. Thus, it's impossible unless he's tired of living, given how even the Lin clan from the Qianwu Kingdom could easily bring out search tools such as the Seeking Mouse, it wouldn't be too hard for powerful influences like them to trace down a person. The only reason why they hadn't done so was because they didn't wish to take any risks after all. Kongsha relic was at stake here. That's true. Let's continue waiting then. Finding those words logical, the crowd decided to wait a while longer. Those that had gathered here were all master teachers, and even the weakest of them was at 4-star pinnacle. Patience was one thing that they didn't lack. Greetings. I am the one who gathered all of you here today. Soon, a deep voice echoed, and a one-armed elder walked into the tavern. Ding Hong didn't try to conceal anything at all, an appearance of an elder in his 60s, a cultivation of Jizuan realm, and a face that looked incredibly ragged. With a look, one could easily tell that he had suffered grievous injuries and had yet to recover from them. Everyone turned their eyes over. They thought that a person who dared to gather all of them here would have to be at least a transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle expert or even higher. To think that it would only be an insignificant Jizuan realm cultivator. Everyone couldn't help but frown. Pardon me for inviting all of you here so abruptly. Just as what was written in the card, I'm here to offer you news on Kongsha's relic. Ding Hong surveyed the crowd as he said those words. He knew that there was no disguise he could don nor lie he could spout that would fool a half 5-star master teacher. Since that was the case, he might as well come out clean. In any case, with the secret he held, he need not fear being silenced. Kongsha's relic. Before you go on any further, I would you to take note of who you are standing before. If there's any falsehood in your words, I believe little has to be said of your plight. Flinging his sleeves, sect leader Luo Huang harumphed. I understand, and I can assure you that there are no lies in my words. The relic I am speaking of refers to Kongsha's handwritten letter. Ding Hong clasped his fist and reported. Kongsha's handwritten letter? Everyone jolted in shock. There were many incredible weapons among Kongsha's relic, but to a master teacher, there was nothing that could be more valuable than his handwritten letter. Such letters usually harnessed the essence, spirit, and soul of the writer. By studying the characters in it often, one's soul depth could rise quickly. No treasure could possibly rival that. Indeed. Back then, the ancestor of a small clan once saved the life of Sage Minute, and in gratitude to that small clan, Kongsha personally wrote a letter to them. Ever since then, the letter had been passed down from generation to generation as a family heirloom, Ding Hong said. Sage Minute. You mean one of the 72 sages of Kongsha's disciples? He's one of the founder of the Master Teacher Pavilion, and very few know not of his name. If what you said is true, the value of that handwritten letter is indeed priceless. Putting everything aside, if one were to seek Sage Min's descendants with that letter in hand, the latter would surely honor one as an esteemed guest. Indeed. Hearing those words, everyone's breathing hastened. Of Kongsha's 3,000 known disciples, the most formidable of them were known as the 72 sages. As one of the 72 sages, Sage Minute had participated in the founding of the Master Teacher Pavilion, and he was honored by all master teachers for such. To have saved such a person and obtained Kongsha's handwritten letter. Disregarding the value of the handwritten letter in itself, just the story behind it would make countless experts wrestle with one another over it. Suppressing his hastened breathing, sect leader Luo Huang lifted his head and asked, "All right, what are your conditions?" Hearing those words, everyone in the room fell silent. Indeed. Since the other party went through so much effort to gather all of them here, surely, he must have his own motives. In fact, they would feel unnerved if he didn't. Sect leader Luo is indeed a candid person. Ding Hong chuckled lightly. My conditions are simple. Firstly, I wish to become the alliance head of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Secondly, I want my cultivation to reach transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle. Last but not least, I want you to kill a person for me. Don't worry, the strength of this person isn't too high, just a transcendent mortal 2-dan primary stage cultivator. Whoever promises me these 3 matters, I'll tell you the whereabouts of Kongsha's relic. The alliance head of the Myriad Kingdom Alliance is supported by the Myriad Kingdom City Master Teacher Pavilion. Even though I can't interfere in the matters of Myriad Kingdom Alliance directly, Pavilion Master Kang should still defer to me on this matter. After all, changing an alliance head wouldn't harm the foundations of the empire. It shouldn't be too difficult to achieve this, sect leader Luo Huang said. As for your cultivation, as long as you follow my guidance strictly, there's an 80% chance that you can reach transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle. As for the assassination, I can agree to it too. Sect leader Luo, there's no need to be so hasty. We possess the capability to do as much as well. I believe no one here intends to give up on Kongsha's relic. Indeed. This friend here, on top of becoming the alliance head of Myriad Kingdom Alliance, our spiraling Cosmos sect can make you an honorary elder. You'll be entitled to equivalent privileges as them. Our Frigid Gale sect also agrees to your conditions. On top of that, we can offer you 5 middle-tier spirit stones and 15 transcendent mortal 2-dan female disciples. An uproar immediately burst within the sea-gazing gazebo. Chapter 560. Greed drives a human's heart. No one expected the other party's conditions to be so simple. The position of alliance head in the Myriad Kingdom Alliance, raising the cultivation to transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle, and killing a transcendent mortal 2-dan primary stage cultivator. There was no rational person who would turn down such terms. Compared to Kongsha's handwritten letter, those were nothing at all. Everyone, calm down. Just as everyone was speaking excitedly, vying with one another for the slot, Ding Hong surveyed the crowd and said, "Allow me to finish my words first before making your decision." In an instant, the room fell silent. Even though the person I want you to kill isn't too strong, his identity is a little unique. He's a master teacher, and he's representing the Myriad Kingdom Alliance for the Master Teacher Tournament as well, Ding Hong said. A master teacher representing Myriad Kingdom Alliance? You mean Master Teacher Zhongxian, whose name has been going around recently? Everyone was taken aback. While they didn't pay much attention to the candidates of Myriad Kingdom Alliance, they did happen to hear of Zhongxian's name. Despite being under 20, he triumphed in the selection round and became a 4-star master teacher on the spot. This had caused quite a commotion in Myriad Kingdom City. To kill a public figure, not to mention a 4-star master teacher at that. Those who were still smiling a moment ago immediately turned grim. Master teachers were forbidden from killing one another. If the headquarters were to learn of it, the consequences would be disastrous. Not to mention, this fellow's name had been on the rise recently. If any harm were to come to him at this moment, the most likely suspects would be them. Frowning, sect leader Luo Huang asked, "What grudge do you have with Zhongshe?" While master teachers were forbidden from killing one another, there were exceptions to the rule. It had to meet at least one of the following criteria. 1. The grudge between both sides had reached an irreconcilable stage. 2. The master teacher had committed a deed against the master teacher moral code. 3. The master teacher had shown severe disrespect toward a higher-ranked master teacher through their words or actions. These were also the fundamental rules of the master teacher pavilion. Devoid of camaraderie kill, devoid of morals kill, devoid of respect kill. As role models, master teachers were expected to conduct themselves with the highest of values. It was also for this reason that the master teacher pavilion was so respected throughout the continent. Gritting his teeth, Ding Hong roared furiously, "He killed my kin and destroyed my country. Unless he dies, my hatred will never be quelled." For an esteemed elder of a country like him to end up wandering around as though a lost vagrant, not daring to return back to his homeland. It was all that fellow's fault. "Your hatred will never be quelled unless he dies." Good. Seeing the lack of falsehood in the old man's expression, sect leader Luo Huang heaved a sigh of relief. "I can help you raise your cultivation to transcendent mortal 3 Dan swiftly so that you could exact your vengeance personally. What do you think of it?" Since the other party had an irreconcilable grudge against Zhongshe, under the first condition to killing a master teacher, he was allowed to raise the other party's cultivation so that the other party could exact his vengeance. After all, given the grudge between the two, as long as it was a fair duel, the master teacher pavilion wouldn't be able to object to it. Indeed. Why didn't I think of that? Sect leader Luo is indeed sharp. Hearing those words, everyone slapped their foreheads. As long as they didn't make a move themselves, they wouldn't have to take responsibility for this matter. Even if the headquarters wished to punish someone for the matter, the blame wouldn't fall on them. This is a good idea, however, there is something very bizarre about that fellow. "I fear that I won't be a match for him." Ding Hong shook his head. The other party's offer was extremely tempting, but having fought with the other party himself, he knew that the other party possessed incredible means. Despite possessing the cultivation of a transcendent mortal 1 Dan, he actually lost to a half-transcension lad. From that experience, he felt that he wouldn't be a match for the other party even if he were to reach Yin-Yang realm. And once that happened, he would be a goner. "You fear that you won't be a match? In other words, you want us to kill him in your stead?" Luo Huang frowned. "That's right." Ding Hong nodded in affirmation. The crowd fell silent. If the other party was just an insignificant figure, killing him wouldn't result in any repercussions. However, the other party just had to be a participant of the Master Teacher Tournament, not to mention, a famous one. If they were to make a move, the Myriad Kingdom Alliance Master Teacher Pavilion would surely retaliate. Once this matter reaches the headquarter, even the strongest fleeting cloud sect would be unable to bear the consequences. I'll be honest, Kongsha's handwritten letter isn't in my hands now. No matter who he is, as long as he promises me to accomplish these 2 matters for me after obtaining the handwritten letter, I'll tell him where it is now. Seeing the hesitation in everyone's eyes, Ding Hong pushed on. "It isn't difficult for us to make you the new alliance head and raise your cultivation. However, the matter regarding Zhongshe has huge repercussions. Even our fleeting cloud sect would have to give this matter some serious consideration." Sect leader Luo Huang contemplated for a moment before replying, "Since that's the case, why don't you tell us where the handwritten letter is first? We will discuss our next course of action after that. If we deem it to be worth the risk, you can count on us for it. Even if it isn't, we'll still fulfill the other 2 conditions you asked for." Killing a 4-star master teacher was no joke. Such a matter couldn't be decided on a whim. Thus, they decided to put the matter aside for now and focus on the location of the handwritten letter first. "Indeed. Don't worry, there are so many of us here. We won't risk damaging our credibility over a small matter like this," Another sect leader said. Besides, the handwritten letter isn't in your hands. That lowers the value of your information. Another added. If Kongsha's handwritten were really in the old man's hands, then even if they had to face the wrath of the headquarters, it would still be worth the risk. But given that the letter was in the hands of another, just a piece of information couldn't guarantee that they would be able to obtain the handwritten letter. Since that was the case, they had to give the matter some more thoughts. After all, it was one thing if they were the only ones to know of the information. However, given that so many people knew of the matter, if something were to happen to Zhongsha, there was a high chance that an information leak might occur. If so, not only would they be unable to keep Kongsha's handwritten letter, it might even bring about a great disaster for their sect. I believe the honor of all of the master teachers here. To speak of the truth, Kongsha's handwritten letter is with Zhongxian at this very moment. He stole it away from me, cutting my arm off in the process even. As long as you kill him, you'll be able to obtain the handwritten letter. Ding Hong spoke of the words that he had prepared beforehand. Zhongsha stole the handwritten letter from you? He was the one who cut off your arm? Everyone was stunned for a moment before frenzied joy gushed into them. As master teachers, they could tell that Ding Hong wasn't being completely honest here. But all of that didn't matter to them at this moment. The important matter at hand was him admitting that the handwritten letter was stolen by Zhongxian. That, in itself, was a breach of the moral code of master teachers. This was sufficient to warrant his death. Tell us more about the matter. If it's indeed true, Zhongsha would have breached the master teacher moral code. As master teachers, we have the responsibility to purge black sheep like him, sect leader Luo Huang declared righteously. Indeed. If you have any grievances, feel free to speak. All of those here today are the noblest of master teachers. If the other party had truly exploited his own identity to oppress you, we will definitely redress your grievances. Such a person mustn't be allowed to remain in the master teacher pavilion. Another 2 master teachers bellowed out. Most of those seated knew that the matter wasn't that simple. However, seeing the look of determination in the eyes of the various sect leaders, they could only sigh and shake their heads. Even they themselves found it hard to resist the allure of Kongsha's handwritten letter. Since everyone is interested in the matter, allow me to speak of it then. With reddened eyes, Ding Hong began recounting the matter. The relic belongs to Chu clan, and our Ding clan has been close friends with the Chu clan for many generations now. In fact, we even once co-governed Shenyuan Kingdom. Unfortunately, the Chu clan couldn't withstand the trial of time and slowly went into decline. Just 3 years ago, the final successor of the Chu clan came and entrusted the relic to us before passing away. At which, Ding Hong's eyes suddenly burned in fury. But who could have known that Zhongxian would learn of it? He barged into my great-grandson's inauguration ceremony, killed him, and stole the handwritten letter. He even tried to silence me. If not for an escaping art that I practiced, I might have died then. Clenching his jaws tightly together, Ding Hong roared furiously in anger. To conceal the vile deeds he committed for Kongsha's handwritten letter, he created all kinds of excuses to justify his action. It's fortunate that the heavens took pity on me and I managed to survive the ordeal. Otherwise, the truth would have never seen the light of the day. Given that the target he was hoping to have killed was a master teacher, he knew that he had to come up with a sufficient reason for the others to justify their actions. Thus, he crafted this story. It was their Ding clan who tried to snatch the handwritten letter from Lu Chong, but he twisted the story to blame Zhongxian for all that happened instead. Only this way would these master teachers be willing to kill Zhongxian in his stead. Atrocious. How could there be such a person among us? How in the world did such an immoral person become a master teacher? He must be taught a lesson. We must instill in him the dignity a teacher should have. That explains why the Myriad Kingdom Alliance Master Teacher Pavilion had always ranked at the bottom. It's time to do some reorganizing to clear up such degenerating culture. Hearing Ding Hong's words, the master teachers were infuriated. Sect leader Luo, I suggest that we confront Zhongxian at this instant to have him explain this matter. That's right. We should have him hand over the handwritten letter as well. It's an insult to Kongsha to have such an immoral person to hold on to his relic. Indeed. I share your thoughts as well. Everyone turned their eyes to sect leader Luo Huang. All of your words make sense. A master teacher must be upright to guide others. But of course, we can't only listen to one side of the story. We should also hear Zhongshe's defense. If it is true that he breached the master teacher moral code, we mustn't let him off the hook even if the Myriad Kingdom Alliance master teacher pavilion sides with him. Sect leader Luo announced righteously as he flung his sleeves. All right, let's go over to confront him now. Everyone nodded their heads in agreement. Seeing that he had everyone's support, sect leader Luo Huang nodded his head in satisfaction. He then turned to Ding Hong and asked, "This friend over here, why don't you follow us there? Until the truth of this matter is revealed, you shall be the most esteemed guest of our fleeting cloud sect. No one will dare to do you any harm." All right. A savage gleam flashed across Ding Hong's eyes. Zhongshe lives in a residence in the vicinity of the Alliance head residence. I know where it is, allow me to lead the way, one of the master teachers shouted before walking at the front. Since they had already come to a decision, the crowd followed behind him and walked out of the sea-gazing gazebo, headed for Zhongshen's residence. Seeing the grand lineup here, Luo Xian couldn't help but shake his head. Given that everyone knew that Kongshe's handwritten letter was with Zhongshe, how could this trial be fair? Regardless of whether Zhongshe admits to it or not, one thing was for sure: he would surely be unable to keep the handwritten letter. Chapter 561, Sun Qiong evicts. A beautiful figure walked over to Zhongshen's current residence, the princess of the Alliance, Zhao Feiwu. Upon seeing her, Sun Qiong hurried forward and said with a bitter smile, "Princess, the young master isn't back yet." Ever since the young master's departure, Princess Zhao had been visiting once every few days. This residence was on the verge of becoming her permanent dwelling already. "I know. I'm just here to walk around." Hearing those words, disappointment clearly flickered across Zhao Feiwu's face for a moment, but she quickly hid it with a smile. Knowing that this princess harbored exceptional feelings for the young master, Sun Qiong hurriedly said, "Princess, there's no need for you to worry. I'll immediately send someone to inform you as soon as the young master is back." "All right." Zhao Feiwu nodded her head, and just as she was about to speak, she suddenly caught someone walking toward the residence from the distance out of the corner of her eye. It was the garden owner of the Southern Herb Garden, Shui Yiyao. This garden owner was known for her eccentric personality and her headstrong personality, bending to none, even the Alliance head residents. Why would she suddenly come here? Perplexed, Zhao Feiwu asked, "May I know the reason for garden owner Shui's sudden visit?" "Zhongshe has resuscitated my earth vein spirit vine, thus saving my entire field of medicinal herbs. I'm here to thank him for the favor," garden owner Shui said. In the past few days, the spirit of the new earth vein spirit vine had successfully fused with the original one, thus allowing it to recover. All of the withering medicinal herbs returned back to perfect health, and only then did garden owner Shui finally affirm that Zhongshe's solution was truly effective. Thus, she decided to make this visit to thank him once more. Even though she had given him many spirit herbs in compensation, but compared to the entire field of medicinal herbs, that was truly not worth mentioning at all. Zhongshe is out training for the Master Teacher Tournament, and he isn't back yet. Sun Qiong explained. Instead of telling others that he was heading for the Yinyang Lake, Zhongshen told others that he was going to go out to train instead. This could ensure that the news wouldn't leak out and thus prevent sabotage from other participants. Training? Garden owner Shui was taken aback. "All right then. I'll pay a visit once more when Zhongshe returns." Since Zhongshe wasn't around, there was no point to her staying here. Thus, she prepared to turn around to leave. But just then, she suddenly felt an overwhelmingly powerful aura behind her, exerting an immense pressure on her. "Is Zhongshe in?" Sect leader Luo Huang of Fleeting Cloud Sect, sect leader by Kaiji of White Alios Sect, sect leader Huang Qi of Cascading Sand Sect. A total of 14 sect leaders and nation elders are here. Ask him to come out to pay his respect. A clear bellow reverberated in the area, tremoring even the clouds. Very few people knew that Zhongshen had left Myriad Kingdom City. On top of that, These powers didn't think of that rising master teacher as a potential opponent, so they didn't pay much attention to him. As such, they didn't know that the other party wasn't around. 14 sect leaders and nation elders were here to visit. What are they up to? Zhongshe is a master teacher of our Myriad Kingdom Alliance. Why are they finding him for? When that voice echoed in the air, many guards and soldiers who heard those words were stunned. Zhongshe was going to represent the entire Myriad Kingdom Alliance in the Master Teacher Tournament. Why was this group of people looking for him? Sun Qiong, Zhao Feiwu, and garden owner Shui traded glances, and they immediately noted that something was amiss. Even if they wanted to pay Zhongshe a visit, it was impossible for 14 heads of their respective powers to visit simultaneously. It was certain that they were up to something. After a moment of hesitation, Sun Qiong stepped forward and greeted the group. Guests, the young master is not around at the moment. An elder waved his hands majestically. Not around? More like you are hiding him. You'd better bring him out, or else don't blame us for conducting a search on our own accord. Kongshi's handwritten letter was simply too precious to them. What if that fellow were to escape after hearing of the news? Search. Sun Qiong frowned. The young master is an esteemed 4-star master teacher who will be representing the Myriad Kingdom Alliance in the Master Teacher Tournament. For all of you to come knocking and even threaten to search the residence, may I ask if the young master has turned his back against the responsibilities of a master teacher or sullied the name of the Master Teacher Pavilion? Besides, even if a search must occur, it should be conducted by the Myriad Kingdom Alliance Master Teacher Pavilion instead. What rights do you have to do so? Do you have a search warrant with you? As a qualified butler, Sun Qiong had studied the various convention and laws governing master teachers so as to act with propriety. Given the young master's esteemed standing as a 4-star master teacher, no one had the rights to search with residents without a search warrant from the Master Teacher Pavilion. We might not have any search warrant, but given that so many senior master teachers are before him, don't you think it is a huge breach of etiquette for him to not pay his respects? Indeed, get him out to greet us. Does he intend to breach the master teacher moral code? 2 middle-aged men of the group threatened. They had made the journey here to ask about Kongshi's handwritten letter. If that fellow were to remain hidden, they wouldn't be able to do anything at all. Pay respects. Hearing the other party's arrogant words, Sun Qiong's face immediately flushed in anger. Audacious. What? Zhao Feiwu and garden owner Shui's body suddenly swayed weakly. The one who is acting audaciously seems to be you instead. The visiting group included sect leaders and nation elders of the 14 strongest empires in the region. They were all either powerful experts or half 5-star master teachers. And yet, an insignificant transcendent mortal 1-dan cultivator like you actually dared to shout to them? Where did your guts come from? The young master is the esteemed direct disciple of great master teacher Yang Xian. How dare you bunch of goons who haven't even reached 5-star yet cause a ruckus here? Sun Qiong waved his hands arrogantly. What are you all waiting for? Scram. Old Master Yang Xian was a master teacher with a ranking of at least 6-star. As his butler, he had to carry himself with pride and disposition which wouldn't bring shame to his name. How dare this bunch of goons demand for the young master to pay respects to them? Who gave you such guts? Sect leader Luo Huang and the others stared at one another, dumbstruck. They thought that their identity would surely scare Zhongxian out of his wits, and the latter would immediately give up and rush out. But never in their dreams did they expect to be blocked at the door by his butler. Not to mention, the other party even said that they were being audacious and chased them away. The heck? Am I hearing things? What did you say? I dare you to repeat yourself. Sect leader Luo Huang's eyebrows shot up as a powerful aura burst forth from him. He was the sect leader of the Fleeting Cloud sect, a transcendent mortal 5-dan consonant spirit realm pinnacle expert. To be chased away by this insignificant fellow, how could he possibly take it lying? What did I say? Are you deaf? How can someone as dumb as you remain as a master teacher? I truly wonder how you became a sect leader like this. Sun Qiong waved his hands and said, Fine, since you didn't hear me clearly the first time, I'll repeat myself for your sake. I am asking you to scram, don't cause any trouble here. You're courting death. Seeing that his teacher had been humiliated, Luo Xian couldn't hold back his rage any longer and charged forward. Hong Long. A gigantic palm carrying an indescribably violent aura came charging toward Sun Qiong, eradicating everything in its path. Chio. But before the palm could strike Sun Qiong, a sharp call echoed from the skies. Following which, a gigantic shadow fell straight down to the ground. Due to the incredible speed from its movements, a shrill sonic boom threatened to pierce everyone's ears. The heck? Luo Xian barely managed to release a shout of exclamation before he was seated upon. His entire body was immediately bent in an unnatural anger, and a mouthful of fresh blood spewed from his mouth. He nearly breathed his last at that moment. Demon sank beast. Back when Zhong Xian left, he had entrusted the safety of everyone in the residence to him. Thus, upon seeing Luo Xian make a move against Sun Qiong, it immediately swooped down to protect the latter. As a transcendent mortal 4-dan pinnacle expert who was on the verge of achieving a breakthrough at any moment, the demon sank beast was significantly stronger than Luo Xian. Not to mention, it possessed astounding speed and nearly invincible defensive capability. The latter didn't even have a chance to react before he was mortally wounded. Luo Xian felt as though he was on the verge of breaking down. He was the genius who was the strongest contender for the champion seat for the Master Teacher Tournament, an expert who was just a step away from reaching Consonant Spirit Realm, and yet, he nearly died from being squashed by a spirit beast. Just the thought of it left him incredibly frenzied. Beast, how dare you? A crimson glow extended across sect leader Luo Huang's face all the way down to the neck as he bellowed furiously. He was the sect leader of the Fleeting Cloud sect, the strongest power among the 28 kingdoms in the region. And yet, his student actually ended up being squashed by a spirit beast right before him. Infuriated, he prepared to charge up to teach the other party a lesson. Why? Is a half 5-star master teacher like you going to lay his hands on an ordinary civilian? What wrong have I committed? What wrong has Zhongshe committed? Sun Qiong stepped forward. In view of their standing, master teachers wouldn't make a move on ordinary civilians as long as they didn't sin. Sun Qiong was only preventing anyone from trespassing into their residence, so he couldn't be said to have sinned. Rather, Luo Xian, who lost his composure and charged at him, was clearly at fault here. If Luo Huang were to make a move instead, the only one who would be embarrassed would be him. But even though Sun Qiong was confident that the other party wouldn't stoop down to his level, he was still feeling a little worried. You. Having his intentions questioned, sect leader Luo Huang retracted his outstretched palm. The other party was just a subordinate. To kill the other party over such a small matter would only make him seem petty. I'll repeat it once more. The young master isn't in the residence now. No matter what you're here for, be it to acknowledge him as your teacher or to seek his guidance, I'll have to ask of you to leave. Seeing that the other party didn't make a move in the end, Sun Qiong harumphed while heaving a sigh of relief on the inside. Acknowledging him as our teacher. Hearing those words, everyone felt faint-headed. Acknowledge your head. Have you seen anyone coming to acknowledge a teacher in such a manner? Besides, that Zhong Xian is only a 4-star primary master teacher. What right does he have to become the teacher of us half 5-star master teachers? Seeing the awkward situation, an elder walked over and asked, Sect leader Luo, what do we do now? They were all esteemed experts. They couldn't possibly just come over to overturn everything in the other party's house, going to the extent of even laying their hands on the other party's subordinate. If they were to do so, even if the headquarters didn't pursue this matter, they would probably die of shame. But if they didn't do so, how could they ascertain whether Zhongshe was around or not? Let's return for now. With a darkened face, sect leader Luo Huang waved his hands. Return? Everyone was taken aback. Are we supposed to retreat just like that? Chased away by the other party's subordinate, aren't we a little too useless? What else can we do? Sect leader Luo Huang harumphed. He was also getting a huge headache over this matter. But from the looks of it, Zhong Xian really didn't seem to be around. Otherwise, given the huge commotion that had occurred, It was impossible for him to still remain hidden. Quarreling with another person's subordinate while the person isn't around. He couldn't afford to lose his reputation over this. More importantly, this butler had way too much bravado. Anyone else would have surely trembled in fear before their presence, but this fellow didn't think much of them at all. I wonder if this fellow really has some kind of backing or he's simply that brave. Sect leader Luo Huang feared that if he were to continue fighting with the other party, he would die of anger first. After a moment of hesitation, sect leader Luo Huang ordered, "We'll send someone to keep a lookout at this residence. As soon as Zhongxian returns, they'll report back to us, and it won't be too late for us to capture him then. Instead of embarrassing himself here, he might as well leave for the moment first." Chapter 562, Returning to Myriad Kingdom City. Yes, even though everyone was reluctant, there was no better solution at hand. If they were to really blow things up and the Myriad Kingdom Alliance Master-Teacher Pavilion got involved, the headquarters might be alarmed, and their envoy might arrive even before Zhongxian returned. If so, they would be put in a difficult position. Voila! Thus, as swiftly as they came, they retreated. And after seeing all of them leave, Sun Qiong's legs caved in and he fell to the ground. He was the butler of Master-Teacher Yang Xian, and he knew he couldn't lose out to others in terms of disposition, but his cultivation was simply too low at the moment. With a strength of only transcendent mortal 1 Dan, it had taken all of his courage to stand before so many experts. Recalling how close he came to danger just a moment ago, Zhao Feiwu stepped forward and asked, "Don't you fear death?" To yell at so many consonant spirit realm experts to scram, even her father wouldn't be able to muster such courage. Where did the confidence of this plump butler come from? After a moment later, Sun Qiong finally recovered. Standing up, he shook his head in response. "Of course I do. But if you're scared, why would you still?" Even garden owner Shuer was perplexed by the other party's actions. Since he felt fear, why did he still do it? If sect leader Luo Huang were to really make a move then, he would have surely died on the spot. If that were to happen, nothing could remedy it. It would mean nothing even if Zhongshe were to redress your grievances in the future. A dead life couldn't be brought back. I am indebted to the old master. From a humble Zhenqi realm cultivator, he had brought me to a position where I'm respected and trusted by so many. As long as he allows me to remain at his side as his butler, I have the obligation to ensure that the old master's dignity isn't being trampled on, even if it means my death, Sun Qiong said with determination. If not for the old master, he would probably spend his entire life in the small shop he had in Tianqian Royal City. He would have never met so many master teachers, needless to say, step into a position where no one dares to belittle him. The old master had given him a second life. If he, as a butler, was unable to uphold the old master's dignity, he would have failed in his duties. This was the faith he held, and he was determined to live his life by it. This was precisely the reason why he mustered his courage and stood before those experts despite the danger. His strength might be lacking, and his cultivation might be low, but the dignity of a high-ranked master teacher mustn't be thrown away. Zhao Feiwu was in awe. This plump man may look like an unreliable figure, but yet, he had things which he was unwilling to compromise on as well. It seemed that even though the people that gathered around Zhongshe were all eccentric, they seemed to be oddly and unreservedly united. Conflict and politics didn't seem to exist among them. Perhaps this might be due to his charisma. A moment later, Zhao Feiwu suddenly thought of something and asked, "The old master that you spoke of refers to Yangshe? Where is Yangshe at the moment?" She had heard of Yangshe Zhongshe's teacher, but she had never met him before. "The old master likes to spend his time roaming freely across the lands. I've no idea where he is either." As soon as he spoke of Yang Xian, Sun Qiong's face immediately lit up in admiration. "You don't know where he is?" Zhao Feiwu was perplexed. Then, is he not going to spectate the master-teacher tournament? His student was participating in such an important tournament for the first time. Was Yangshe, despite being the other party's teacher, not going to support Zhongshe at such a crucial moment? Sun Qiong contemplated for a moment before replying, "I'm not too sure as well. However, I think he should be coming soon. It was clear that those who had come together harbored malicious intentions toward Zhongshe. If the old master didn't appear soon, something bad might really happen. But, old master, where are you? Chu. Zhongxian rubbed his nose. Naturally, he wasn't aware that Ding Hong was already at Myriad Kingdom City and had already convinced the 14 strongest powers currently in the city to move against him. He was still on the back of the aerial spirit beast, glancing down at the winding mountain range below as his eyes slowly lit up in excitement. After half a month's journey, he was finally returning to Myriad Kingdom City. I'm finally back. Judging by the timing, the Soulrouse grass should have matured already. I should be able to craft the Soulrouse incense and wake Lu Chong now. As the Soulrouse grass could not be kept in his storage ring, Zhongxian chose not to bring it with him. It had been 50 days since his departure, and it should have already matured under Wang Ying's care and be ready to be crafted into the Soulrouse incense. With this, Lu Chong would be able to come back to life, and he would have resolved a boulder weighing down on his heart. Honglong. A distance away, a disturbance in the surrounding spiritual energy could be felt, and a powerful aura suddenly burst out. I've achieved a breakthrough. Ruohuan Gongzi slowly opened his eyes. At this moment, his eyes were clear, and his body was seemingly filled with endlessly vitality and might. Transcendent Mortal 4 Dan Clarifying Turbidity Realm Pinnacle. Under Zhongxian's pointers and the nourishment of a middle-tier spirit stone, he had really managed to reach Transcendent Mortal 4 Dan Pinnacle within half a month. Zhongshe, thank you for your guidance. Sensing overwhelming energy far superior to before flowing through his body, Ruohuan Gongzi clasped his fist in gratitude. If not for the other party, who knew how long it would have taken him to reach Transcendent Mortal 4 Dan Pinnacle. There's no need to stand on ceremony. Zhongxian waved his hands. The surge of Heaven's Path Zhenqi he infused into the other party previously had made the other party's originally turbid Zhenqi purer. Building on such a foundation, it wasn't too hard for the other party to advance several small realms consecutively within a short period of time. If the other party couldn't do as much under such conditions, the other party would truly be unworthy of his title as a genius. Zhongshe, your cultivation. Pavilion Master Kang raised his doubts. Seeing Ruohuan Gongzi's swift improvement in the past few days had delighted him, but at the same time, doubts started sprouting in his mind. If Zhongshe could induce such massive improvements in others, why couldn't he do the same for himself? Given that the other party hadn't even reached Transcendent Mortal 3 Dan yet, he would surely in a huge disadvantage competing in the Master-Teacher tournament. Don't worry. I'll try my best to advance to the Yin-Yang Realm Pinnacle before the tournament, and if possible, perhaps even clarifying Turbidity Realm. Knowing what the other party was worried about, Zhongxian waved his hands nonchalantly. To advance his cultivation, he needed middle-tier spirit stones. To do so through absorbing spiritual energy in the air was simply too inefficient. However, this just happened to be the resource he was sorely lacking at the moment. Since any advancement otherwise would be insignificant in comparison, he decided to find some way to procure more middle-tier spirit stones in the capital first before raising his cultivation. UN. Hearing Zhongshe's guarantee, Pavilion Master Kang nodded his head. We're about to arrive at your residence. Walking up to the entrance of the room on top of the spirit beast, Zhongxian suddenly turned around and said, UN. I'll be bidding you farewell here then. I'll be busy during this period of time, so don't look for me. Rest assured, I'll surely appear at the Master-Teacher tournament when the time comes. To procure more middle-tier spirit stones, it was likely that he would have to appear in public as Yangshe. If Pavilion Master Kang were to visit during this period of time, given the abrupt disappearance of Zhongshe and the latter's familiarity with him, there was a chance that the latter might tie the two together and realize that Yangshe was actually Zhongshe. Thus, Zhongxian decided to take precautions against that. All right. Thinking that Zhongxian might be intending on going into seclusion, Pavilion Master Kang nodded his head. After saying all that had to be said, Zhongxian leaped off the back of the spirit beast, and not too long later, Pavilion Master Kang departed along with the spirit beast. As soon as Zhongxian returned to the residence, Sun Qiong suddenly rushed up to him. Young master. Noticing that something was amiss from Sun Qiong's anxious expression, Zhongxian asked, Did something happen while I was away? The fleeting cloud sect and 13 other powers came to find you while you were away. Sun Qiong swiftly recounted the entire matter. Why are they looking for me? Zhong Xian frowned. He had never seen those people before. Why would they suddenly pay him a visit? Inform me the next time they come over. Zhong Xian had been in a dilemma as to who he should procure spirit stones from when these people came knocking at his door. This worked out fine as well. At the very least, he didn't have to go out there to search for customers. Yes. Seeing the composure on the young master's face, Sun Qiong suddenly felt the burden on his shoulder being lifted, and he heaved a sigh of relief. Young master, may I know where the old master is at the moment, and will he be coming over? Teacher. Zhong Xian was stunned for a moment. However, he quickly recovered and replied, Teacher told me that he will be coming over in the next few days. All right, I have to speak with Wang Ying. Where is she? Zhong Xian waved his hands. Since he was going to appear as Yangshe, it was best for him to let the news out in advance so that it wouldn't be too abrupt and unnatural. She's currently in the midst of caring for the soul rouse grass. Young master, are you intending to cure young master Lu Chong now? Upon recalling something, Sun Qiong's eyes suddenly lit up. As the butler of the residence, how could he be unaware of what Wang Ying was up? For the young master to look for her so anxiously as soon as he returned, most likely, this was something that had to do with Lu Chong. Zhong Xian nodded his head. Lu Chong's issue is intricately tied with the topic of souls, and I would require absolute silence for the treatment. Make sure that no one interrupts me. Sun Qiong nodded. However, a moment later, he finally realized the reason behind the incongruity he had been feeling since the young master's arrival and asked, Young master, didn't Zhao Wei Xiaojie leave with you? Why isn't she here? Since Zhao Wei left along with Zhong Xian, it didn't make sense for the latter to return alone. She has gone somewhere else. She won't be returning for the time being. Zhong Xian shook his hands before walking over to the room where the soul rouse grass was being cultivated. Teacher. As soon as Zhong Xian entered the room, he immediately saw Wang Ying. Nodding his head to acknowledge the other party's greeting, he turned his gaze to the soul rouse grass placed in the middle of the room. By now, it was already around half the height of a human, and it emitted a unique scent that left with one feeling confusion. It seemed as though one's soul would be trapped in it the moment one put one's guard down. Harnessing soul energy, the soul rouse grass possessed the ability to interfere with one's psyche. You've worked hard over the past few days. You should take a rest. Seeing how well the soul rouse grass grown, not to mention the complete lack of scratches on it, one could easily imagine how much effort Wang Ying had put into its cultivation. Having been complimented, Wang Ying's face reddened, and she hurriedly walked out. Time to start. Drawing his soul out from his body, Zhong Xian grabbed the soul rouse grass lightly in his palm and began to infuse his zhenqi in to forge it. He would have required a lot of preparation beforehand to forge the soul rouse grass successfully before, but after his soul had been tempered by both yin and yang energy, thus becoming even stronger and compact, forging it wasn't a problem for him anymore. Under the inflow of zhenqi from Zhong Xian, the medicinal herb melted, turning into a puddle of flowing green liquid. And with a flick of his fingers, the liquid began gathering together, forming an incense stick. Soul rouse incense. It possessed the ability to awaken a dormant soul after being lit. Based on what Mo Hunsheng said, to increase the chances of waking Lu Chong, it'll be best for me to infuse a portion of my soul into it. By infusing a portion of his soul into the soul rouse grass before lighting it, its effectiveness could be enhanced. Soul split. Zhong Xian carefully split a portion of his soul, and in the process, his face gradually paled. Even though his soul had reached the cultivation of transcendent mortal Fordan pinnacle, dividing his soul would still cause significant damage to him. But as long as Lu Chong could be safe, there was no sacrifice too great. Fusing the divided portion of his soul with the incense, he was finally ready to awaken Lu Chong. Great. I should begin now. Having completed all preparations, Zhong Xian heaved a sigh of relief. Retracting his soul back into his body, he walked forward toward Lu Chong. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.